Indianapolis.
It's Kevin and Query.
I throw, you catch. It's not that hard, okay? All right, get the out of here.
I'm going to talk a lot about drills and fundamentals.
Watch it, watch it, watch it, watch it.
On 93.5
Watch it.
and 107.5.
Boom, baby.
The Fan.
So, Kevin, what we know is this. Frank Reich's got to buy a new house, and Dan Quinn staying in the one he's got, right?
Certainly, yes. I would assume yes on the latter. I think Frank Reich already has a home in Charlotte.
Well, I mean, yeah. I should have said Frank Reich has a new job. Dan Quinn's going to stay with the one he had, right?
Yeah. Frank Reich to the Panthers, and yeah, I mean, you talk about a city that means a lot to him, a franchise that means a lot to him, means a lot to his family. He's got a daughter that works for the franchise, so I think it was a very emotional day, I can imagine, for a guy like Frank Reich. And, you know, I understand it from Carolina's point of view. I didn't realize this, though, Jake. That's the first offensive hire they've made in franchise history.
Really?
They've gone defense with every single hire in their, nearly 30 years, I guess, of existence. And, you know, you got the feeling they wanted that side of the ball. I guess a couple things I'm really curious about. One is, what staff does Frank Reich bring with him? Does he bring Gus Bradley? Does he bring Bubba Ventrone? Does he keep Reggie Wayne off the beach and tell him, hey, man, let's do this for another year. Come over here to Carolina. And then lastly, and I know that Carolina's a little bit deeper in the top 10, and maybe a team like Chicago wouldn't want this, but Carolina has the 9th overall pick. They're in a very needy quarterback situation, just like Indianapolis.
Are they, though? And by that, I mean this. Does Frank Reich see it that way? Or does he see in Sam Darnold, perhaps, the same awakening he thought he could get out of Carson Wentz, for example?
Yeah, it's a fair question. That's a bit scary that you even bring it up. But again, knowing Frank Reich's loyalty, I understand the question. I think Carolina just went through the same thing Indianapolis has gone through for the last 4 or 5 years, and they say enough is enough. And if you look at the Panthers' draft picks, you know, when they traded Christian McCaffrey, they got an extra second rounder this year. So, again, they're at 9th. Indianapolis at 4th. That's a big gap. But still, I'm very curious, you know, does Frank Reich know what Chris Ballard likes in this draft class? Does Chris Ballard know what Frank Reich likes in this draft class? How will that intel play out?
Here's a question for you. What does that mean for Steve Wilks, who I thought did a good job?
He coaches on the wrong side of the ball.
But moving forward, what does it mean for him? Should he get an interview here?
Yeah, we'll see. Are you already kind of down the road with other defensive candidates?
Does Steve Wilks' pending litigation against the Panthers, which he's insinuated, hurt him from getting a head coaching job somewhere?
I mean, I know it's not apples to apples, but it doesn't appear to have helped Brian Flores' case.
Good point.
Which is disappointing because I think I said it last year when Brian Flores was fired. I go, move Frank Reich to OC and hire Brian Flores as the head coach. There are a lot of Reich ties to the Charlotte area. His brother coaches at a local college there, has coached there forever. I think that's where Frank initially went into the seminary after his playing days, was in Charlotte. So that's kind of their home away from home. I do think this, Jake, when you bring up the Steve Wilks thing, and by the way, good Friday morning to you. Kevin Bowen, Jake Query, and Mark Dykton. Purdue continues to get it done away from home, and I thought just another kind of box checked by Purdue last night. We'll explain that. The Pacers have got the Bucks tonight. It looks like the Miles Turner injury situation isn't too bad, listed as questionable. No update on Tyrese Halliburton, though, as we are now 2 weeks removed from what was supposed to be the evaluation date on that. And, of course, we'll talk NFL playoffs coming up with the conference championships this weekend. On the Reich note, though, Jake, I don't think this has a big domino effect around the coaching opening cycle, if you will, right? I don't think Frank Reich was like being heavily coveted in other
I would agree with that.
areas.
Yeah.
Now, the fact that Dan Quinn has pulled his name out, again, I don't have a great pulse on the other openings around the league, but just based off a little bit of intel, it appears like Houston thinks DeMeco Ryans or maybe Jonathan Gannon, the Philly defensive coordinator. Denver, some sort of DeMeco Ryans, Sean Payton, maybe David Shaw. I know Arizona has also interviewed Sean Payton, so I think we're one more opening, probably one more Sean Payton decision away from the dominoes are really starting to fall. And all of a sudden teams are kind of like, oh boy, we got to panic a little bit. Wait, you think you're getting DeMeco Ryans? We think we're getting DeMeco Ryans. So I thought with only 5 openings, it might just take one for the dominoes start to fall, but I think Frank Reich was kind of an isolated case in that I think outside of Arizona, I thought Carolina was really the only place that he was being interviewed.
And we will talk plenty about the Colts coaching search over the course of the morning. That'll probably be our primary topic, but some college basketball to discuss as well. First off, how about, and kudos to, I mean, you want to talk about an electric atmosphere and just kind of a growing seemingly with every single week new momentum. I mean, first off, you have Purdue on the women's side, and Katie Gerald's going and getting a win at Illinois, which was big for them.
Seems like she's got that program turned back around.
She does have it kind of steadied, right? And then Indiana. I mean, the Hoosiers last night, 78-65 over number 2 ranked Ohio State down at Assembly Hall. And, I mean, Indiana's rolling. I saw, I guess they do a women's bracketology as well that believes that Indiana is potentially now in play for certainly a number 1 seed, but potentially a number 1 or 2 overall seed in the entire tournament for the women's side.
Yeah, I mean, I saw that was their 6th win over a ranked team. Obviously, when you beat a team ranked above you, and IU was, 6th? I think
Correct.
It was in
That's
the rankings.
Correct.
So, I mean, you beat the number 2 team in the nation. That's certainly going to bolster your resume. Huge third quarter last night for them. And, yeah, to your point, Jake, over 10,000 in the building. You know, every time I turned over, I was like, man, this kind of feels like a, 9 o'clock, IU men's team hosting one in Assembly Hall. And, I mean, from the years that I was there, gosh, I never would have guessed the women's program would have been
right
at this level. So, yes, a great opportunity that they took advantage of last night. And I would think, with a month to go in the regular season, a little bit over a month, that Indiana women in line for a number 1 seed. And flip that over to the men's side, Purdue continues to bolster the best resume in college basketball. I mentioned this earlier, Jake, checking a box. If I were to say to you, what is a question you were to have about Purdue making an April run? Because it's almost like that's where we are at right now with this team. Like they've proven they can definitely be a second weekend team. It's more of, can they get to April? Do you have enough support for Zach Edey? And by Zach Edey's standards, he dominated the first 5-10 minutes of the game, but he was rather quiet, especially in the second half. And yet Purdue kept the lead, expanded a lead, and did it away from home. And I think that's a really important step because inevitably in the tournament, and it might just be because Purdue gets a bad whistle, Zach Edey's going to have a night where he's taken out of a game. And he's not getting you 25 and 15 like he seemingly gives you every single night. So what happens when that occurs? And last night, their bench was outstanding. Even Fletcher Lawyer was a little bit quiet in the second half. And they got support, again, away from Mackey, which I think is so important if they are going to get on one of those special runs.
Yeah, what they did last night, I watched most of that game, Purdue and Michigan. Regent Bryan will be thrilled to know I watched most of the game. They go to Zach Edey early and often. And, I mean, his
couple
touch,
left-handers early.
Yeah, I mean, his touch is really impressive. And that was a really good battle watching between he and Hunter Dickinson, just the scoring back and forth. But they go to Edey, Kevin, and they have a 2-point lead. And then after a couple of minutes, it's up to 4. And then they're up 6 because he is very consistent when they go into him. You are scoring more often than not in trips down the floor. Then they get that lead to like the 6 to 8 point range. And they start, to your point, opening up and finding out which one's going to be the guy that is offering. Caleb First gives them good play, but then Lawyer or Gillis, they get a couple of outside shots, and then they just, before you know it, you're up 8-11, and you just kind of ride that momentum the rest of the way. Now, late in the game, Michigan made it interesting, but it you're up 9
every time.
Yeah, you're up 9 with a minute to go. You're in good shape. My point being, they don't necessarily come in and blow you out of the building. They just, it's death by paper cut.
And I thought, again, last night was just a little different. Braden Smith in foul trouble in the first half. David Jenkins, who I think has really struggled for them. The transfer came in and made a couple of important plays off the bench. You mentioned Gillis. Trey Kaufman-Wren. I thought he was critical early on when, again, it was just kind of a back-and-forth game. And just important minutes from their bench. And, it's wild to think, Jake. They're going to go... Does Purdue have 2 home games until Indiana? Is that right? Michigan State on Sunday, and then... is it Penn State next week?
No, they go... Did you say Michigan State, by the way?
Michigan State's at home, right?
Yeah, so they go Michigan State at home on Sunday, and then you are correct. Then to Happy Valley, and then they come back for trip to Bloomington. No, I'm sorry, not Happy Valley. They play back-to-back home games. Michigan State and Penn
So their
State.
next road game will be Bloomington.
Correct.
So, Jake, they're 6-0 on the road. They haven't lost away from Mackey. The one loss is inside of Mackey.
Evan just set it up.
And honestly, I didn't even set it up to try and go down the jinx route. I set it up to say they are unquestionably the number 1 overall seed right now. Their resume, how many times do you hear on Selection Sunday, they were 9-2 away from home?
Right.
Again, Purdue continues to build such a great resume. And, Michigan is not maybe the juggernaut a lot of people thought they would be at the start of the year, but still, it's a road win over a team that's right around the NCAA tournament bubble.
I thought about this last night as I was watching the game. Maybe it's because I'm an adult now and I'm not a kid, but when I was a kid and I would watch...
Some might argue with that comment, by the way.
SpaghettiOs and Pop-Tarts laying around.
What's that?
What you kind of confused with the age of the person who lives in the facility.
What's wrong with that?
Nothing.
I got news for you, Mark. This kind of sexiness comes with the extra calcium that
SpaghettiOs provides.
Jake, I would say, I feel like you would enjoy the diet of having young children. When Rosie kind of half-asses her way
through. Those Lunchables are good.
Right, and when she kind of just, I'm done with the Easy Mac, about halfway through. That's a nice little meal to throw in there.
Jake would love to add Uncrustables to his menu.
Mm-hmm. Right, exactly.
But when I was a kid and I would watch Indiana games, all the way up through when I was in college, if Indiana was ranked number 1 in the country, just seeing the little number 1 next to them was such a big deal to me. And I was always paying attention to who was ranked number 1. And then here I am watching the game last night, and 3 different times I had to remind myself, I'm like, Purdue was ranked number 1 in the country, and we barely talk about that fact. And it's almost like it's taken for granted that Matt Painter's just built this consistent program that just recycles, each time that a big man leaves, oh man, how are they going to replace Isaac Haas? How are they going to replace, Matt Harms? And then here's Zach Edey. It's just Jaden Ivey. Yeah, they're number 1 in the country, man. That is pretty darn cool.
And I think to get number 1 twice in a year is always pretty impressive too. And it's not like they fell to 2 and then the next week that team that jumped them lost. They were, 3 right around there for a couple of weeks and then got back up there. This might be a horrible analogy with Purdue, Jake, but when I watch them move the basketball, it's got a bit of kind of a globetrotter feel to it.
I don't disagree. Their ball movement is impressive, man.
And it's like pace. The ball doesn't stick. If you hear that term. No one is trying to isolate, and you could argue they don't have a lot of guys that maybe would be great isolators per se, which I think is a fine statement to make. But man, that ball just kind of whips around the horn. Everybody is so willing to throw it into Zach Edey. Everybody's effective in throwing into Edey, and I just think that is really, really rare. So important win for Purdue as they continue to expand that lead in the Big Ten. As Jake said, Michigan State on Sunday, and for Indiana, they've got Ohio State tomorrow night. It's kind of a rare Saturday night game inside of Assembly Hall. Gus Johnson on that one, so I know you'll be locked into that one.
Good Lord. The Gus Johnson thing, people have caught on to this, right? We've gone over this, I realize. I feel like, honestly, with Gus Johnson, that they told him to kind of calm down. Because what game was it last year? Remember we were talking about? And when I went on about how I think he's talented. I get all that, but you got to know the difference between the second half, the second quarter of a game and and maybe it was a football game. He was very tempered.
He had a chance last night for a game winner. Iowa got some great looks right before against Michigan State, right before Purdue and Michigan, but both of those missed. We'll have Greg Rakestraw join us at 8, and one of my favorites, I think the most sane human being on the Colts beat, that would be George Bremer from the Anderson Herald Bolton. He's going to join us at 9. Jake, you said it a little bit earlier, Dan Quinn pulling his name out of the head coach search. And where I think that's notable, again, I wasn't standing on the table for Dan Quinn by any means, but we've debated, do you want head coaching experience? Throwing Jeff Saturday's name out, Jake, if you look at this list of candidates, if you're going head coaching experience, the only guy on that list has not been a head coach in the NFL for over 12 years, in Raheem Morris. So no matter what this hire or who this hire is, this person will have either not coached at the head coaching level in the NFL, or the last time he did it was over a decade ago. Again, I don't think that matters too much, but I know there's a lot of people out there that will have concern over that.
So right now, let's just recap this real quick for those that are just joining us or just got back from vacation and, on Mars.
Oh.
The coaches that we believe to be second interview finalists, if you will, for lack of a better phrase, for the Colts head coaching position would be Raheem Morris, in no particular order. Raheem Morris, Jeff Saturday, probably Brian Callahan, right?
Yeah, I don't think we know that, 100% sure. I would throw the other name in there that we do know is Jero Evero.
From Denver, right?
And then we'll see about the coordinators this weekend. Again, you have 4 coaches coaching this weekend.
I'll put a question mark next to Ryan's name, right?
D'Amico Ryans, I'd put several question marks next to, because, again, if San Francisco wins, you can't talk to him until February 13th.
Right.
But the other 3 you all could talk to on Monday, no matter win or lose. That would be Brian Callahan, who you mentioned, Cincinnati OC, Shane Steichen, your Philly OC, and Eric Bieniemy, your Chiefs
now,
OC.
Bieniemy, pardon my naivete, has Bieniemy, do we know that they are interested in a second interview for him, or are we assuming that?
No, I don't think we've seen really anything. I mean, Brian Callahan even said this week the Colts haven't reached out to me for a second interview. Now, that could just be the Colts, wanting Brian Callahan to handle his own business, and, hey, no matter what happens, we can talk to you on Monday.
Any of these names, because I'm telling you what, Kevin.
Again, I still like Ryans and Callahan. Those have been the 2 most consistent for me.
And
all
Raheem
throughout.
Morris is the name that I would like.
And Morris, I would not be mad about it. I think there's a lot of reason to look at a man that coached in the NFL over a decade ago. He was 32 years old as a head coach, Jake. Can you imagine?
The more I look at it, the more I believe that the candidacy of Jeff Saturday increases.
Oh, I mean, the Dan Quinn news, yeah.
At
this point, if you were going to kind of say, all right, Kevin, who would you put above the rest? I'd probably put Ryans and Saturday in terms of how they view it inside of that building.
And I'm not saying this because I think that Jim Irsay wants to be difficult.
Excuse me, Morris and Saturday.
But the more people push back on Jim Irsay about Jeff Saturday, the more I think he's likely to double down.
It's a scary thought you just said. I don't disagree with it, sadly. I do have, maybe we can talk about this in the 7:30 segment. I do have a comment, a thought related to the hire of Saturday, that it would be Jim Irsay going against so much of what he has said.
Okay.
We can bring that up here in a few minutes. Tonight, the Bucks inside of Gainbridge Fieldhouse. 6:30, our coverage begins. Again, Giannis Antetokounmpo, Chris Middleton did not play 2 weeks ago when these teams met in Milwaukee. They are both back.
And it didn't matter.
And you know what, Jake? I know I brought this up a couple weeks ago. The Bucks just own the Pacers. They've won 9 straight. And these are the margins. 9, 15, 18, 10, 9, 27, 20, 19, and 13. Spread's only 7.5, by the way, for tonight.
I'm excited to watch the game tonight.
This is a fun little Friday, Sunday. Milwaukee and then at Memphis. Who guards Giannis?
T.J. McConnell, actually, interesting. I just was talking to somebody yesterday that was at practice. T.J. McConnell, do you remember Hoosiers? You've seen Hoosiers, right?
Do I remember Hoosiers?
Strap, put Ollie on your shoulders, and then Ollie gets up to measure I think you'll find the rims the same as it is at our gym back in Hickory.
That's going to be Goga and McConnell tonight?
T.J. McConnell, getting on Goga's shoulders, and that's who's guarding Giannis.
Lateral movement. Teenagers trying to sneak into an R-rated movie. Yes, I'll like to see this film.
Did you ever do the Saturday matinee sneak-ins when you were a kid? You go for like a noon movie and then you stay and hang around and then you sneak into the ones that are at 3 o'clock?
I think we just tried to do buy a couple tickets, bring a few out, and see if we can get our way in there.
The back door? Did you ever do that? Like
Hope they don't. 146 Regal Cinema. That's still there.
You know what?
Right by Menards.
I was just there when I saw The Whale. That's where we saw it. I had never been to that theater, and
that's where you went.
Yes, that's where it was playing, and we went there, and I thought it was great. They've got like the stadium seating, they all do now, right? But there was it was kind of more of a quaint, older school theater, which I liked on the inside. It wasn't like the big, Man,
if those walls could talk.
Really?
You guys, level of interest for Sunday. Championship games.
Very high.
I would agree with that, Mark. We've talked about it from a Vegas spread standpoint. It's the first time, I think, since like 2016 that you've had both championship games spread of less than 3 points. I mean, on paper, I would argue these are the 4 hottest teams we've seen over the last couple months of the season. Balanced teams. Kansas City's now gone back up to a 1-point favorite, I believe. I think Philly's just a couple of points as a favorite there. I'm not very confident in either pick that I have, which I think is an indicator that these should be 2 great games.
I think the AFC game is really exciting and fun and sexy and all of that and intriguing, and I know that they are 2 darn good football teams for whatever reason, and I'm not saying I'm not going to watch the game and be excited by it, but there's nothing about San Francisco or Philadelphia, either one, that gets me super excited.
Oh, really? I love watching San Francisco.
Yeah, I get it. I don't know why.
They've got some special talent,
and they've got cool uniforms. I mean, all that they do. I mean, Kittle is fun to watch. McCaffrey's fun to watch.
Debo
Samuel's fun to watch. Purdy's a great story. I mean, they got a lot to like.
Philly's got a cool offense.
They do, but Philly. This is so weird. I know I'm weird. I know I'm neurotic. When I think of Philadelphia and the Eagles, and the same is true of the Giants, and the same is true of the Commanders back in the day, when I think of those franchises, I just think of the late Sunday, drizzly, dreary, 45 degrees and rainy game with a 60 minutes preview coming up after, except for on the West Coast, your late local news, whatever. And it's like, I got to go to school tomorrow. There's just something about the NFC East to me that is like a mud slog. I don't know why.
Yeah, I think this Philly team's a little bit more modern.
I get it. Get it. But it's like an eye association. I look at it and I just go, oh, God, I haven't done my homework. Which actually is true again this year.
I was going to say, geology class on that one.
That's right. Well, math. I got another math class.
Yeah, combined spread of 3.5 in the 2 games. That's the second lowest ever.
Here's a good question. Somebody just asked me, is Evero on the Denver coaching list? If not, why would the Colts be interested in a guy that coached in Denver but is not atop their list?
Yeah, Mark, do you recall
That's a really good question.
Nick Kosmider said yesterday? I asked him that direct question. They interviewed him, certainly, but I think they are viewing Sean Payton, D'Amico Ryans, and David Shaw maybe in a little bit of a different light.
Yeah, that sounds correct.
With him, Jake, I think the same question would apply to like a Bubba Ventrone here. Do you just kind of want to get away from that previous staff? Do you just feel like, albeit he had great success defensively, whatever. He was Nathaniel Hackett's college roommate. I don't know if any of that matters. But yeah, that is a fair question. Sounds like Raheem Morris today, Evero yesterday. I'm very interested to see Frank Reich's staff. How many Gus Bradley, Bubba Ventrone, Reggie Wayne type hires.
Probably depends on.
And does he call plays?
It probably depends on also who gets hired here, right?
But again, if you're a coach, can you wait for that?
Fair. But Reggie Wayne's under contract, right?
Remember the Reggie Wayne tweet? The coaching business is, shadier than he originally thought.
He also said, it's snowing, I'm out of here.
Yeah, he's not fond of this weather.
I don't blame him for that.
But yeah, will Frank Reich call plays? Because I would argue that was too much on his plate here in Indianapolis. Will he continue to do that? Or does he look at Nick Sirianni and say, hey,
here's
maybe
a better
I'll be
question,
a little bit more of a
Kevin,
CEO?
And I know we're up against it, but here's a better question to ponder. If Jim Irsay, true or false, nostalgia and being connected to greatness of teams within the Colts history is important to Jim Irsay. The Colts history is important to Jim Irsay. True or false?
Oh, true.
Okay. If Jim Irsay feels like keeping Cato June, keeping Reggie Wayne, keeping links to the past are connected towards having a coach that wants to be here, does that even further cement to him the necessity to lock in Jeff Saturday as opposed to a coach that would force his stars of the Super Bowl era to go coach elsewhere?
Boy, his ego would be a lot bigger than I think it is. I mean, his ego's big, but...
His being?
Jim.
But why is Reggie Wayne coaching here?
Because of Frank Reich. I'd be somewhat surprised if Reggie Wayne coached in the NFL next year.
But if Jeff Saturday comes here, one would think if Reggie Wayne was going to stay in Indianapolis, it would be because there's only one coach that he would probably retain for, right?
Would Reggie Wayne? Well, yeah. Would Reggie Wayne rather be on Frank Reich's staff or Jeff Saturday's staff?
That's a good question. I can't answer that. I mean, that's a good question. But if you're Jim Irsay, you're thinking, I want as many guys that are horseshoe guys here as possible. Yeah, who's going to retain the horseshoe in the glory years of the Lombardis?
I get what you're saying, but gosh, at some point we can acknowledge and appreciate the era. But
I don't disagree,
Kevin. You just need to hire every great player.
We're talking about the same guy that had Raymond Berry come out to do a coin flip in an Indianapolis game, and people were like, "Who's that again?" He's one of the great horseshoe guys. Okay, I mean, you're in Indianapolis now. Nobody,
A whole lot to get to today on Kevin and Query. Greg Rakestraw, 8 o'clock, George Bremer at 9. Yes, Aaron, we did mention earlier the Indiana women getting a big win over number 2 Ohio State last night, furthering that impressive resume that, in my eyes, not going to act like I'm totally plugged in, but 6 wins over ranked teams. You got to think that is a number 1 seed type of resume for Terry Morin's bunch. Great atmosphere inside of Assembly Hall last night. Nice start to this Friday morning to you. No precipitation or anything that you're dealing with here on your commute in. Kevin Bowe and Jake Query, Mark Dykton, 93.5, 107.5, The Fan.
The Ride with JMV.
Matt Painter joins us. How does it feel to be over that 400 mark?
You just move to the next game. It's really not that big a deal. Obviously, we've had some really good players at Purdue and some really good coaches. The thing that I like is I think we're continuing to get better. Our program's getting better. Product's getting better. We're doing a better job of evaluating and bringing guys in here that fit. It makes it enjoyable. It makes it fun. This is a fun group to coach.
The Ride with JMV.
Weekdays, 3 to 6.
On 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
A girl in Kenya dreams of becoming a doctor. An elder in Guatemala dreams of becoming part of a community. Reach out and change their world, and it will change your own. Unbound.org.
Need new tires? Skip the long appointments and bad coffee. With Go Mobile Tires Indy, order tires online and have them installed at your home or office. GoMobileIndy.com. We come to you.
Payless Liquors can help make your Valentine's Day special and save you money. Payless is teaming up with Maker's Mark, Woodford, and Romeo Juliet wines for tastings, chocolate pairings, and even flower giveaways. Just go to PaylessLiquors.com or follow on Facebook for times and dates. Plus, all 26 family-owned Payless stores have the Kuiper Variety 4-packs for only 99 cents. Fireball Hearts are only $8.99, and Canadian Club in the 1.75-liter bottle is only $14.99. This Valentine's Day, don't pay more, get more, and pay less at Payless Liquors.
The NFL playoffs are heating up, and the easiest way to get into all the action is with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. New customers, join today to get started with $150 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. Just sign up with promo code PLAY. Don't miss out. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NFL.
21 plus in select states. First online real money wager only. Bonus issued is non-withdrawable free bets that expires in 14 days. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit fanduel.com/RG in Colorado, Iowa, Maryland, Michigan, New Jersey, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Illinois, Virginia, and West Virginia. 1-800-NEXT-STEP or text NEXT STEP to 53342 in Arizona. 1-888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org/chat in Connecticut. 1-800-9-WITH-IT in Indiana. 1-800-522-4700 in Wyoming and Kansas or visit ksgamblinghelp.com in Kansas. 1-877-770-STOP in Louisiana, 1-877-8-HOPE-NY, or text HOPE-NY 467-369 in New York. Tennessee Redline, 1-800-889-9789 in Tennessee.
Bowling, 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 keep them balls a-rolling. Bowling, bowling, bowling. Royal Pin.
The U.S. Open is returning to Royal Pin Woodland. Start the major PBA tournament off with Bowl with the Pros on January 29th with 2 squad times available, 4 p.m. and 7 p.m. Bowlers of all ages are guaranteed to bowl with 6 of the PBA's top professionals competing in the U.S. Open. Don't stop there. Get your tickets to watch the bowlers compete for the major title and Green Jacket live on Fox. 2 shows available. Visit bowl.com/US Open to sign up to Bowl with the Pros and get your tickets to the live finals. Or call Woodland at 317-844-4099. That's 317-844-4099.
Royal Pin, bowling, bowling. Royal Pin, bowling.
When you hear Diamonds Direct, it's not just a catchy name designed to give the illusion of value. Our name is who we really are. Diamonds Direct was started by diamond cutters a quarter of a century ago. At our very core is a commitment to cut out the middleman and deliver extreme value in exquisite diamonds. Today, that's more true than ever, with our direct access to diamonds straight from the mines. Diamonds that we then cut and polish. Exquisite diamonds up to 15 and 20 carats in all shapes and sizes. It's an advantage other jewelers only dream of. By overseeing the entire process, we know for a fact Diamonds Direct is truly direct. So this year, as value becomes more important than ever, rest assured that Diamonds Direct's unique status in the world diamond market guarantees you the best no middleman direct importer price, period. And even with this extreme value promise, at Diamonds Direct you still get an unbeatable selection, transparent education, a luxurious shopping experience, superior customer service, no compromises. It's not having a cool name or clever advertising, it's the truth. Diamonds Direct, your love, our passion.
Get the truck you've always wanted and get $6,000 off at Tom Wood Ford. Yes, America's best-selling truck, the powerful F-150, is $6,000 off now at Tom Wood Ford. Need an SUV? Take $4,000 off of Ford Escapes with unmatched design and ultimate tech capabilities. Buy with confidence, as most of our vehicles include lifetime powertrain coverage at no cost to you. It's all good at Tom Wood Ford on the corner of 96 and Keystone.
It's all good at Tom Wood. Bum, bum.
Tax, title, and dock fees extra. See dealer for details.
Get in zone, AutoZone.
Welcome to AutoZone. Thinking about gas mileage? If your check engine light is on, it may be affecting your MPGs, but the free AutoZone Fix Finder service can help. With the most complete free warning light report backed by technician-verified fixes, you'll know what's affecting your gas mileage and more, and you don't have to drive too far to find the fix. The free AutoZone Fix Finder service is available at all 6,200 stores.
Get in zone, AutoZone.
See details at AutoZone.com.
The Dominique Foxworth Show.
I believe that most quarterbacks and probably more players are failed than the players themselves not being good. It's the coaches in the situation failing them. I was just thinking that we should start the Shanahan test or the Andy Reid test. When we start talking about players stink or players are bust, especially offensive players, just ask yourself, what would he look like in San Francisco or in Kansas City?
Check out the Dominique Foxworth Show anywhere you get your podcast.
Progressive is America's #1 motorcycle insurer, so we understand motorcycles. No, really, we have a bike translator.
Okay, this is awkward, but this bike says he'd appreciate it if you removed his skull pattern saddlebags. He feels self-conscious about them around all the other bikes, and he says you're not fooling anyone. You mostly ride with your golfing buddies. Listen, I'm just the messenger here. Oh, no, I don't want to say that. I think you made yourself clear.
Quote with Progressive and see if you could save with America's #1 motorcycle insurer. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates.
The Morning Checkdown, brought to you by Ball State Basketball. Get your tickets at ballstatesports.com on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
All right, last night up in Ann Arbor, Jake, Purdue continued their undefeated season on the road in the Big Ten. It's now 6-0, 9-1 overall in the Big Ten. Was it 75-70? Was that the final? Purdue built a nice lead in the first half thanks to their bench. Great support from guys not named Zach Edey, Braden Smith battling foul trouble. Fletcher Lawyer was kind of quiet late in the second half. So an important step for Purdue, getting some help from not really their big three, especially their big one. Edey had 19 and 9, but compared to what he has been putting up this season, important for Purdue to get that type of support. Here was Matt Painter afterwards on Purdue, expanding that lead, unlike their game against Maryland.
Yeah, we just didn't turn the ball over as much. We didn't allow Michigan, and how many, the fast break points. We gave a handful of baskets to Maryland. I shouldn't say gave because, they were playing defense and getting steals, but we turned the basketball over too much. And even though 12 is not a great number, it's much better than 15. Like those plays when they got in there and were able to get those steals, like that really gave Maryland momentum. Just passing and catching, being simple. I talked to them before the game about hitting singles. Just hit singles, man. Quit trying to always hit home runs. Take what the defense gives you. And I thought that was the difference in the game against Maryland and how it became so close was our inability just to pass and catch and do simple things.
Yeah, again, growth from Maryland to last night.
Max Headroom in a windstorm. Talking about.
Is that like a remix of a swoosh that we were going to do?
No, 19. By the way, on the women's side of things, Purdue 62-52 winners on the road at number 22 Illinois, and the big one last night in women's college basketball, Indiana over Ohio State, 78-65. Hoosiers now 19-1. Ohio State came in ranked number 2 in the country. They now fall to 19-2.
Megan McEwen on the call last night?
I think so.
I could have sworn that was her voice. Yeah, she did a great job. And
She
I was
does a really good job.
Back and forth on that. All right, tonight over at Gamebridge Fieldhouse, the Pacers back in action. They will take on the Milwaukee Bucks. Sounds like Giannis, sounds like Middleton will play. For the Pacers, I guess good news on the Miles Turner front. He's just listed as questionable. It's an right ankle injury for him. That is not the ankle that he hurt, remember, on opening night in warm-up. So good news on that front. Doesn't look like Tyrese Halliburton will play, though. He is 2 weeks removed from that initial report, supposed to be evaluated yesterday. Pacers did not have practice, so no update on that. 7.5-point underdog for the Pacers. They will head to Memphis for a game on Sunday, so quite the back-to-back. And speaking of Halliburton, did you guys see the All-Star starters announced last night?
Mm-hmm. Yep. I saw the captains were announced, right?
Yes, and the starters. I don't think really that much of a surprise that Halliburton was not a starter. Donovan Mitchell, Kyrie Irving, Jason Tatum, Kevin Durant, and Giannis. A little surprised no Joel Embiid starting for the East. Out west, Steph Curry, Luka Doncic, LeBron, Zion Williamson, and Nikola Jokic.
A couple of those guys, Zion Williamson tweaked a hamstring and Luka rolled his ankle, right?
Last night?
Yeah.
Halliburton was 5th among voting in Eastern Conference guards, 3rd by the media, 6th by the players, 8th by the fans. I still think he gets voted in as a reserve. Coaches vote for reserves. That will be announced next week.
Now, does Wally Szczerbiak have a vote?
Well, 3rd by the media, so we'll see if Wally had a vote there.
You knew who is playing at a really high level, who's a really good player in the NBA?
LeBron.
Well, besides that, same city. I know people don't want to hear it around here.
Paul George.
Paul George pretty darn good, man. 35 last night.
Yeah, like
Clippers 138-100 over the Spurs. Should we check how many Romeo Langford had last night for the Spurs?
Sure. How about Blake Wesley from Notre Dame? Is he getting any minutes for him?
Okay, let's check. The Spurs, by the way, they've got 2 kids from Ben Davis that play for them, too. Like literally students that are currently at Ben Davis playing for the Spurs. They're definitely in rebuild mode. San Antonio Spurs last night, here we go. Would you like to guess, Mark, how many Romeo Langford had?
5.
Let's go with 8.
Oh, hang on. My chipmunk that runs my computer just took a smoke break. Hang on, he'll be right back.
Pretty par for the course in Jake's pre-show planning here.
Here we go. Romeo Langford. Come on now. I don't see him. DNP CD maybe.
Well, this is right on par with Jeffrey's pop quiz yesterday.
Who did you ask about?
Blake Wesley. Or is he G League in it?
He had 21 minutes last night, did Blake Wesley. He was 2 of 5 from the floor, 0 for 2 for three-point range. He had 6 points.
Good. For him.
I don't know. Is Langford hurt or is he in you kind of never know, right?
Boys, a riveting close here to the morning checkdown.
We probably should have a meeting about these kinds of things.
You want to look that up and inform us maybe when we come back? I'm sure
I will.
People are just on the edge of their seats looking at. You know how many people have probably looked this up in their car already?
Already have the answer?
When we come back here on Kevin and Query, we'll get back into the Colts head coaching search. Mentioned it earlier.
He's out with left abductor tightness, by the way, Romeo Langford.
I'll give him a QC Kinetics call.
That's
see if
right.
I can help in that
I've
area.
got right abductor tightness from time to time.
I've got some of that just from listening to the last minute or two of you trying to find that.
I'm on your right, and I'm your abductor. Things are a little tight.
Jim Irsay hires Jeff Saturday. Would he be going against something that he has been very public about in recent years? We'll explain more coming up next.
Soccer Saturday featuring Indy 11. If this is your football, this is your show. Saturday at 9 on The Fan.
Governor Holcomb, I love how high school sports teach the importance of the journey.
I couldn't agree more, Commissioner Neidig. Before any measure of success is achieved, like making a winning play or earning a state championship, student athletes go on an essential journey that humbles and teaches them every step of the way.
The lessons learned along the journey of high school sports are about so much more than just the game. Student athletes learn how to persevere through adversity, never give up, and to get better every day.
This second classroom teaches the skills, behaviors, and attitudes student athletes need to be successful on the playing field and in life.
There's no better training ground for today's teens on their way to becoming tomorrow's leaders. Support the vital work of education-based athletics by buying a ticket to your high school's athletic events.
This is keeping education in front of athletics. This is the journey of high school sports. This is your IHSAA.
Yesterday, I had a Christian from Window Nation out to my house, take a look at my certainly aging windows. It was great to get some information on that from him. Looking forward to sharing that with you guys here in the coming weeks. But as far as right now is concerned, late January, it is home show season. And Window Nation is bringing the home show savings to you for one final week. You get 0% financing for 60 months. That's 5 years, no interest, plus 2 free windows with every 2 you buy, and all of this without leaving the comfort of your home. So go to windownation.com/home show and try their free virtual visualizer. Just upload a picture of your home, view hundreds of window options. Window Nation started in 2006 by two brothers, family owned and operated, the third biggest window company in the nation. Forbes actually ranked them number 1 last year in windows to install. So again, call 866-90-NATION or go online at windownation.com/home show.
O'Reilly. When you need auto parts, O'ReillyAuto.com is just a few clicks away. We offer convenient options for you to get your parts quickly. Order online and pick up for free at your local O'Reilly Auto Parts store. We'll even bring it out curbside. Or you can have your parts delivered right to your door with free shipping on most orders over $35. Visit O'ReillyAuto.com.
O'Reilly Auto Parts.
Wendy's knows cold and soggy fries are the worst. So soggy. That's why we're serving up hot and crispy fries all day, every day.
And all night until close.
With natural cut potatoes, sea salted to perfection.
Show me that potato skin.
Wendy's hot and crispy aren't like other fries. We're your dream fry. Choose wisely. Choose Wendy's hot and crispy fries.
Guaranteed to be hot and crispy. If yours aren't, bring them back and we'll replace them.
The football playoffs are here, and nothing beats seeing your favorite team live. Not only does Vivid Seats have great NFL ticket prices, they're also the official ticketing partner of ESPN. And with Vivid Seats rewards, when you buy 10 tickets, you get the 11th free. Download the app or visit vividseats.com today. Vivid Seats. Life happens live. Receive a reward credit equal to the average price of the 10 tickets purchased, excluding taxes, fees, and processing costs. See vividseats.com/rewards for terms and conditions.
Ready to hit the road? CarX Tire and Auto will drain and fill your radiator, change your oil and wipers, rotate your tires, and inspect everything, all starting at $109. The Road Ready package, only at CarX.
Don't worry, call the CarX man.
I need tires, but I want to go to CarX.
CarX has tires. 4 tires as low as $299 installed for many cars. 40,000-mile tires. And CarX tires are installed by CarX professionals. So when you need tires...
Don't worry, call the CarX man.
Listen up, Indy. We all know our schools need more money, but there's a plan out here right now that will give more money to white students in some public schools at the expense of black students. I'm Janiyah Thomas, and I am a student at Believe Circle City High School. Under the plan, my school gets no increase, while other schools might get $1,000 or $2,000 more depending on what school they attend. It's not fair. The IPS board could vote on this plan soon, and they need to hear from you. Call 317-226-4418 and ask the board to fund all public students fairly. That's 317-226-4418.
Paid for by Empowered Families.
Michaelis is the calm after the storm. More than 3 decades of restoring damage from wind, rain, and hail. They've got your back, not to mention your front, side, and roof. From site security and tarping services to complete restoration work, they can handle anything Mother Nature throws your way. Water, storms, fire, and foundations. Life happens. Michaelis happens to help you through it. Call 844-FIX-INDY. Make it Michaelis.
Hey, it's JMV. Sometimes, too many times, bad things happen to good people. Good people get hurt or killed through no fault of their own. That's where Tony Patterson at Parr Ritchie Law Firm can help. Tony understands because he spent his career helping people just like you put their lives back together. He was honored by Best Lawyers as 2020's Indianapolis Personal Injury Lawyer of the Year. See if Tony can help you. The call is free, 317-269-2509, or visit parrinjury.com, P-A-R-R injury.com today.
You're listening to Kevin and Query on 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Jake, when you look back on the Chuck Pagano, Ryan Grigson era, the downfall of that era, Jim Irsay made it very clear it was dysfunction between those two. Those two not on the same page. I mean, we have the very infamous Monday night press conference after the, 2015 season of, they're going to see a therapist and they're going to be aligned and now they're tied at the hip and all of this. And that lasted a year, and then Grigson was fired, and then Pagano was fired a year after that. Would hiring Jeff Saturday create similar GM head coach dysfunction?
I think that Jeff Saturday and Chris Ballard had I think they had a decent working relationship, actually, prior.
Prior to November?
No. Once Saturday became the interim head coach, I think that his interactions with Ballard were probably fewer than one would guess, but cordial and professional. But that also was during a time that Ballard was under the assumption that there was going to be a job opening up that he would be able to thoroughly vet.
And his voice was also being muted.
And I think there is an assumption by a lot of people, Kevin, that Chris Ballard at this point is a guy that is happily going in and doing his job because he's getting a big paycheck. And that's, let me back that up. I'm not meaning that as a knock on Chris Ballard. I'm actually saying that in defense of Chris Ballard. That came out the wrong way. That makes it sound like he's just mailing it in and doesn't care. I don't mean that at all. What I mean is I think there are a lot of people that are wondering or under the assumption, like from a fan standpoint, of Chris Ballard, one would assume, could probably get jobs around the league. And if he has been muted or neutered, then at this point, he's probably like, hey, I'm getting $5 million a year. I'll go in and sure, I'll keep the owner happy. I think there are a lot of people that assume that may be taking place. I don't know. But to your point, yes, I do believe that if Jeff Saturday is permanently put in position after Chris Ballard has this exhaustively gone through all of this window dressing, then Chris Ballard will be along the same lines of a lot of fans of like, what are we doing here? And I don't mean what are we doing, meaning what are we doing hiring Jeff Saturday? Just why did we go through the charade?
You know, Pagano-Grigson dysfunction, it's probably unfair to just assume or label the same thing would be there if Jeff Saturday were hired in that relationship with Chris Ballard. But there sure as hell would be a lot of awkwardness. And this kind of goes back to what I was saying at the end of the season of, I think when you fire a head coach, if your GM is on any sort of similar timeline to that head coach, which Ballard is, Ballard had only been in Indy for 1 year longer than Frank Reich, I would just can both and start over. Because I just think it creates an awkward dynamic when you have a 6th-year GM, I guess a 7th-year GM, who has won nothing, and now you're bringing in this potentially this beloved figure of the franchise that the owner absolutely loves. That just seems awkward, messy, and I think it's such an organizational key to have the GM and the head coach aligned on things. Would they be? The first sign of adversity, naturally, as human beings, you're probably just going to throw the other one under the bus.
And we've been there, right?
And that's where I think if Jim Irsay looks at this and says, man, the previous era, the biggest downfall of that era, because, you know, Grigson and Pagano, they won early on. Double-digit wins each of the first 3 seasons. And then, like...
Can you do that again? That was impressive.
Yeah, I wanted a little bit more downfall. There we go.
Okay.
That was a little better the second time around.
Do you remember, Kevin?
What I'm saying with Irsay, Jake, is will he sit there and think to himself, that relationship fractured the last era? Do I want to make sure that the potential for that isn't somewhat there this time around?
Conventional wisdom, you would hope, would say yes. But
conventional wisdom is...
Here's the other side that comes into play.
Use.
And this is a little more esoteric, but for those that, for the few of you out there that are listening that maybe haven't followed the Colts as explicitly, I'll use a different sport analogy. Get ready for your little bad metaphor thing, Mark.
There we go. Get out the bingo card.
Kevin, do you recall and I'm going in the way back admittedly, but do you recall the 2002 Indianapolis 500 controversy between Elio Castroneves and Paul Tracy?
Yeah, yellow-green situation.
Correct.
Late.
So that's exactly right. Towards the end of the race, Elio Castroneves is trying to hold on to the lead. Paul Tracy seemingly passes him right at the time that the caution flag comes out due to an accident with Laurent Redon and Buddy Lazier. Castroneves is given the win, and ironically, Roger Penske and his team appeal it, saying that Tracy had already made the pass when the caution came out. It went to a multi-week, multi-video presentation, board hearings, appeal process. Paul Tracy's team spent $750,000 accumulating video and satellite images and telemetry and everything else.
This would be good for that Netflix thing that INDYCAR's doing.
Correct.
Whatever they're doing.
And then after all of that, they held a press conference to announce who was going to win the Indy 500. This was many weeks later. And they came out and everybody packed into the rooms at the media center at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Here comes the judge and jury. Here comes the ruling. And they come out and say, upon further review, this actually was not up for appeal. So thank you, everyone, for your attention and for your diligence on an appeal that wasn't appealable. And having nothing to do with him as a person, a coach, anything, if Jeff Saturday is hired as the head coach of the Indianapolis Colts permanently, then fans of this franchise are going to feel like they went into a press conference room to have Jim Irsay say, after further review and interviewing Dan Quinn and D'Amico Ryans and Raheem Morris and Brian Callahan and et cetera, we decided actually that this was never up for appeal to begin with, and Jeff Saturday was our guy from the get-go.
This has been another Jake Query metaphor.
Thanks.
Just picture Mark's finger hovering over the button for the last 30 or 40 seconds waiting for that. Yeah, it would have like a bit of a travel baseball feel to it. Oh, yeah, we're going to pick him because, Dad sponsors the jerseys.
Right.
It would have a little bit of that feel to it. How about this one from Bennett, Jake? If Irsay hires Saturday, do you think there will be a potential issue where coaches wouldn't want to come to Indy to be on Saturday's staff out of the disrespect and drama of the situation?
I don't know about that. I think that there might be coaches that would be hesitant to go because they would not be sold that it was. I think there are already coaches that are hesitant to come here.
Yeah.
Quite frankly.
And to Bennett's point, I think if you're a coach and you are way in two places, that would be a con on it. Again, I don't think it's a major con, but it is interesting when you hear the tone of some of the national people, like Ian Rappaport, especially yesterday, the tone that he was using in describing how people around the league view Jim Irsay and Jeff Saturday's relationship. There is a disdain from coaches around the league. Is it to the point where you would totally not even look at that job? Yeah, that's probably a bit unfair to say, but I think there are a lot of people, and obviously we saw with Bill Cowher early on, and I think you still see it today, that people would be very turned off by the Colts with that. But again, this comes back to the other point I was making earlier in the week. That's why I'm so fascinated to see what Jeff Saturday's coaching staff would look like.
By the way, I miss. This is what I meant to say. Roger Penske was Castro Nevis' owner. Team Green, Barry Green, was Paul Tracy's. So Penske was the.
What did Elio say to us when didn't we ask him that earlier this year when we had him on, or last year?
Yeah, he basically said, "Look, I was stunned when all the lights went off to say that the caution had come out. So I know for a fact he had not yet passed me because I was going along and all of a sudden he said I was in such a trance focused on making sure Tracy didn't pass me that it almost woke me up when they yelled at me about the caution light coming on and the lights all came on in my dash and I was still in front at that time." But he also said it admitted that he may not have had enough fuel to win the race if it had stayed green.
Boy, they need to carve out that drama here for late May on the old CW, right? Isn't that where it's?
That's right.
The behind-the-scenes documentary style will be.
Right there next to Live Golf.
Yeah, Live Golf on CW as well. Mm-hmm. But you got to download the app to watch the Friday rounds.
Oh, do you?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So go ahead and get a head start on that.
What about the Bally Sports app? Is that still going to be around?
Boy, I saw bankrupt for Bally. Did I see that?
They're like not. We're up against it, I realize, but I will simply say this. With all televised sports, the TV contracts, that bubble was eventually going to burst. I mean, when you're paying, what did I see, $9 billion with a B? That's an awfully hard return on investment to get. I don't care what you're selling. And some of the networks, it's like Major League Baseball contracts. Guys get signed to these mega, 10-year, mega million contracts, and how often by like year 7 are the teams absolutely desperate to trade them? It's the same thing with a lot of TV networks. They're desperate to get out of these TV deals.
Speaking of TV, Greg Rakestraw joins us next here. Kevin and Corey.
93.5 and 107.5 The Fan. Your home for Indy sports. Now with even more ways to listen.
Listen on air.
Online at 1075thefan.com.
And on our free app.
Stay connected to all things Indy sports, including the latest news, show blogs, and catch up on what you've missed with our podcast.
We're never more than just a click away.
Download our app at Google Play and on the App Store. From your home for Indy sports.
93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
The free AutoZone Fix Finder service can help troubleshoot the likely cause of your pesky check engine light for free and get you back on the road. Restrictions apply. Get in the zone. AutoZone.
Get the truck you've always wanted and get $6,000 off at Tom Wood Ford. Yes, America's best-selling truck, the powerful F-150, is $6,000 off now at Tom Wood Ford. Need an SUV? Take $4,000 off of Ford Escapes with unmatched design and ultimate tech capabilities. Buy with confidence, as most of our vehicles include lifetime powertrain coverage at no cost to you. It's all good at Tom Wood Ford on the corner of 96 and Keystone.
It's all good at Tom Wood. Bum bum.
Tax, title, and doc fees extra. See dealer for details.
Love. It makes us do crazy things, like being the first one to say, I love you, or adopting a cat together when you're more of a dog person. Celebrate the madness of love with the perfect Valentine's gift from Helzberg Diamonds. Right now, half-carat diamond heart pendants in your choice of white, yellow, or rose gold are just $399.99, a savings of $500. Show her you're smitten with the gift of gorgeous jewelry at our best prices of the season. Hurry, Valentine's Day is Tuesday, February 14th. Shop at Helzberg.com or visit a store near you.
Oh,
O'Reilly Auto Parts provides more than just the right parts for your repair. Our professional parts people can also offer free check engine light diagnosis. We can scan your vehicle and provide a list of possible fixes. Find the right parts for you or recommend a great local repair shop. Don't ignore your check engine light. Stop by your local O'Reilly Auto Parts.
O'Reilly Auto Parts.
Every pro is an MVP to us. As a Lowe's MVP's Rewards member, you can earn bonus points when you shop select products and brands. Then redeem them for exciting rewards like tools, sports memorabilia, e-gift cards, and more. Join today to become a member and start earning. Bonus points calculated before taxes and fees after applicable discounts, if any, subject to program terms while supplies last. Points expire at end of calendar year. Visit Lowe's.com/MVP's bonus points for details.
The Mina Kimes Show, featuring Lenny.
And we should know, and I assume you saw this, but it's too late to take back your pick.
I can tell you I saw that because I was the one that texted that to you.
Oh, I missed that. I can confirm you texted that to me, and I wrote back, damn, that would be huge. This was an hour and a half ago, in my defense. I've been busy.
Listen and subscribe to The Mina Kimes Show, featuring Lenny, wherever you listen to podcasts.
The new year is here. Time for a change. Start a recession-resistant new career in the high-demand IT field with My Computer Career in just months. Already in IT? Build your cybersecurity skills and prep for thousands of open positions employers nationwide are desperate to fill. Attend classes live online or on campus, and financial aid is available to those who qualify, including the GI Bill. Make this your year. Go to mycomputercareer.edu and take the free career evaluation today. That's mycomputercareer.edu.
Shake down the thunder on January 27th with the Indiana Pacers for University of Notre Dame Hat Night as the Pacers battle the Bucks.
Turner blocked the shot. That's number 1,000.
Only available through this promotion. Get your game night ticket and a limited edition Indiana Pacers and University of Notre Dame co-branded New Era hat starting at just $35.
Here's a deep three. Halliburton.
Show your alumni pride by visiting Pacers.com/university. Pacers, Bucks, University of Notre Dame Hat Night. Friday at 7.
Hey, it's Dan Dockich for Affinity Whole Health. Guys, do something for yourselves. Go to feelgreatindy.com. I'm on a testosterone replacement program with Affinity. Let me tell you, the benefits are amazing. Go to feelgreatindy.com. That's feelgreatindy.com.
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
WIBC HD2, W298BB, WIBC HD3, W228CX, Indianapolis. The Pacers welcome the Milwaukee Bucks to the Fieldhouse this evening at 6:30 on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
You're listening to Kevin and Query on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Jake, I'm not sure if you saw this earlier in the week from our next guest, but Greg Rakestraw is going to join us here, ISC Sports Network. I want to say the Indy Star had an article on a couple that is trying to go to every Indiana high school basketball gym. Did you see that?
I saw that, yep.
How many do you think Reich has been to?
How many are there total? I know he knows, but how many are there total?
Well, let's ask him because I don't.
I would bet you that he has been to.
I don't know the answer to that.
I'm going to say he's been to 85%.
Greg Rakestraw, how many Indiana high school basketball gyms are there?
Not as many. Well, there's about 400 basically is what you're looking at. So there's 410 members, and not everybody has their own. The vast majority do. I've got two separate lists going. So the gym count is not as large as you would think. I've been to 124. But I have another list that I've been maintaining for years, and that is I've had some official responsibilities for a game involving this. In other words, I played against them all those years ago. I have done an event from their facility, or I have had them in a game. That number is 274.
274.
So there are. So in other words, you're including schools like if you go to the Wigwam no longer, but if you go to North Central and they play, insert name, whatever, Gary Roosevelt.
Correct.
You are counting Gary Roosevelt even though you've not been to Gary Roosevelt's gym, theoretically.
Correct. I have had them in some official capacity. Right. Again, I was not just there as a fan. I was either an athlete in the game or I was working the game on radio or television.
I think if I'm not mistaken, you've got Addix and Ben Davis coming up. Is that tomorrow night?
I've got Ben Davis both nights this week. So they've got Carmel, and Carmel ended an undefeated Ben Davis season 29 years ago, trying to do the same thing. They just knocked off number 3 Brownsburg on Saturday. And then tomorrow night, Addix as the surprise winners of the city tournament, taking on the county champs.
Yeah, beating my Irish.
In Ben Davis, so...
I was curious about, and that's just naturally how the schedule evolved, of course. This is not the city champion playing the county champ.
Correct.
What if you did that, on Wednesday of this past week, Reich? The city title is Monday. I guess, was Marion County last Saturday, though?
Correct. Marion County would have been January 14th.
Okay, so, wow, it would have been a couple weeks ago. You think we would ever, I get, obviously it's different, governing bodies. It sounds way too hierarchy of a term, but would we ever get hey, city champ plays the county champ, the Wednesday after the city tournament or something?
Sure. The fact that the teams, seemingly the pool of teams that's going to win the city tournament is smaller than those that are going to win the county tournament. But let's face it, Cathedral's in the championship most every year. It's kind of been a rotating, is Tech the best city team or is Addix the best city team? For a while, Howe would have been in that group. For a brief period of time, Cecina, would have been in the conversation. And so because of that, for example, Cathedral and Ben Davis play each other every year. That game was actually moved up. Usually it's in February. That game was moved to December to be a part of the Forum Tip-Off Classic this year. And so because of the fact that normally the teams that are going to win the county are probably going to play the teams that win the city anyway in their regular season schedule, or as has been the case many times in the last several years, they're in the same sectional, like Cathedral and Tech, both being in the same sectional as both Lawrence North, North Central, et cetera. Because those games already likely happen, my answer would be probably not.
Greg, do you believe Greg Rakestraw is our guest? He's on the Payless Liquors hotline. Of course, you can see and hear him on the ISC Sports Network talking high school basketball, among the other responsibilities he has. That includes being the post-game host for the Colts radio network. When Dan Quinn announced that he was going to stay at his current position and not seek the head coaching opportunities for which he had interviewed, which included the Indianapolis Colts, and that he was going to stay in Dallas, do you think the Colts saw that as a colossal disappointment, or do you think the Colts saw that as an ease of pressure of a name they could check off the list?
Maybe somewhere in the middle. Just because, again, I think they're still leaning towards an offensive-minded guy, knowing what draft pick you have at number 4, and if you feel the need to move up to go get a quarterback that you need. For even though Dan is an experienced head coach, he's done a really good job in Dallas, is amongst the hot candidates. If you're going to go the defensive-minded route and previous head coach, you've already got a guy like that in your candidate pool in Raheem Morris. So I'm sure they're disappointed in anyone that wanted to set that they thought had a second interview that ends up not coming and taking the job. But is that one less name before an eventual handing of the throne to Jeff Saturday? I don't think I'm ready to go that far just yet, Jake.
On that Jeff Saturday front, and again, Greg Rakestraw joins us, as Jake said, the Colts post-game show host. You also hear him on preseason TV. Rake, I'm not going to act like it is at this level, or it would be premature to act like it would be on this level, but I would say the biggest issue in the breaking up of the previous era was dysfunction between Ryan Grigson and Chuck Pagano, GM and head coach.
Yep.
Should that be a worry at all for Jim Irsay if Jeff Saturday is the hire?
Yes, it should be. I mean, because it's not the first time it's happened. I mean, now the other time it happened, the end result was pretty good, but Jake can give you chapter and verse on talking to Jim Mora. And remember, there was a split between Bill Polian and Jim. Obviously, whether Vic Fangio should be retained or not was kind of the ultimate driving factor there. But there was division between the head coach and the GM. And again, it was the general manager that was picked in that case. And it probably worked out better that was the way that it went. It went the opposite way in 2016, between Grigson and Chuck Pagano. So having everybody sing from the same hymnal is kind of a big deal. In other words, if you think enough of Chris Ballard to continue to let him be your team's general manager, you need to go with his opinion on whom the next head coach is going to be. If you disagree with that, then you should have done something different with Chris Ballard about 3 or 4 weeks ago.
Reich, has anything surprised you about how the last couple of weeks have unfolded with this search? Whether, maybe the lack of a Sean Payton or Jim Harbaugh, no college coaches, the amount of candidates, head coaching experience doesn't seem to be a huge requisite. Anything surprise you?
Maybe just the sheer tonnage of interviews they have done. I appreciate them being thorough. I appreciate them taking their time. It is still a laundry list of people they have talked with about the job. So while I don't disagree with the methodology, it is still eye-popping that it's been, 13 different people seemingly have had a conversation about this job.
And Greg, I don't want to be the bad guy here, but I have been from time to time. I get it. They're being thorough, and I get it. But in a world where people's attention span is that of a gnat, do you think that, and it shouldn't matter, I guess, but do you think that the fan base, or maybe even other coaches, are just kind of exhausted by the length and the updates of all of it from the get-go?
No. I mean, I think part of that is just kind of the way that a business is done. It keeps you in the news cycle, frankly. But that's not the main reason why this is being drawn out, is that reason. I really think it's a game of poker or a game of chess, and you're waiting for other moves to kind of come off the board. Obviously, we saw one yesterday with Frank getting the job in Carolina, but it's not like the Colts are the only team that's in this boat that are waiting to see whom their next head coach is going to be. Seemingly, everybody's kind of waiting for everybody else to make a move, and then once a certain name comes off the board, I expect a lot of dominoes to fall. So I think that's been the biggest reason why this has been a slow-moving process, is that it's been the same for everyone at this point.
Greg Rakestraw is with us tonight. Ben Davis and Carmel. Tomorrow, Ben Davis and Addicts. Rick, kind of the news on more of a baseball fandom standpoint, but obviously ties to the state. Scott Rolen going to the Baseball Hall of Fame earlier this week. How old were you when Rolen was at Jasper?
He is basically, what year graduate was he at Jasper? It's like 92, 93,
I think, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Yes, that makes him all of 1 year older. And while we played high school baseball almost simultaneously, believe me and my guys at Lanesville were not exactly in Jasper's orbit back in 1993.
Do you recall him at all as a basketball player?
Barely. Like for example, Matt Mock, who obviously made it to both the National Football League and Major League Baseball.
LSU.
Made the Myers. Matt was younger than me. I actually broadcast one of Matt's basketball games because he played with Michael Lewis when they made the semi-state in '96. I did a regional game against North Harrison at the Hatchet House that they played in. So I wouldn't have played against Rolen, but you growing up 45 miles away, believe me, you knew how good Jasper baseball was. And when I was in high school, we were right about a 500 team. The larger schools that we were concerned with were New Albany and Floyd Central, and trying to find a way to get past them in the sectional. And we never did. Came close my freshman year to New Albany. That's about as close as we came to getting out of the sectional. So, you knew about Scott Rolen, but I never had the chance to against him or anything like that.
Obviously, I'll tap into both of your minds for this one, but, I mean, and you're talking about great dual sport athletes from an Indiana high school standpoint in our state. Rolen, Joe Wrights, David Bell. Who else am I forgetting?
Stacy Turan.
Clayton Richard, probably.
Tim Stoddard, because he played at NC State and played on the national team and then went to play in Major League Baseball.
Stacy Turan.
From a high school standpoint, because he went the minor league route and never made it out of minor league baseball. But as a high school athlete, Kelsey Mucker was basically all-state in 3 different sports.
Yeah, what happened to him? He got drafted by the Twins, right?
Twins. And I think never made him at AA. I think he's a scout now. But he was an Indiana All-Star in basketball, all-state level football player, and went to go play minor league baseball.
Okay, I'll go with the following. Stacy Turan, and I'll go older here. Stacy Turan, Cam Cameron, Gary Thurman comes to mind, who was could have played Division I quarterback at Miami of Florida and signed with the Kansas City Royals out of high school. Those are the three that come to mind. And then did we mention David Bell already?
Yeah, I mentioned Bell to start.
Did Banks
of the more modern versions, DeJuan Jones and Darius Latham were both guys that were Indiana All-Stars and went and played football. And Darius briefly made it in the National Football League. And then DeJuan, I expect to be a very high draft pick in this year's NFL draft.
How about Kawan Short
being an Indiana All-Star?
Wasn't Kawan Short on a state championship basketball team and then also played in the league?
Great player at East Chicago. Yeah.
Correct. He was
on that
the second leading scorer or third with Etuan Moore, and then Angel Garcia went on to play at Memphis.
Yeah, I'd throw Jeff Samardz's name on there. Dustin Keller, what was that, basketball for Keller? Do you recall that one along with
I remember Dustin as a football player, but he may have been a pretty good basketball player too.
Kenny Lofton.
Sure.
That's a good one.
East Chicago Central.
Very good one. You got anything else left for Reich, Jake? It looks like our mid-majors in the state are taking a step back. What I wanted to ask you, Reich, was about Mike Davis's son.
Yep.
You saw him over the weekend, right?
Correct. I have seen he has had 6 40-point performances in his 4.5-year career, 5-year career. 2 of them have been in the Indiana Farmers Coliseum against IUPUI. He had 43 the last game of the regular season, February of 2020, and then he had 42 to then move into second place in Division I scoring history, and now is about 400 back of Pete Maravich. I don't know what he scored on Monday against Oakland because they played again, and then they would have played last night, I believe. I'm not sure what he had, but it is possible, be difficult. It is possible he can catch Maravich by the end of the year.
What's his game like? Just like 6'1", 6'2", shooter, scorer? Is he attacking the rim? What's his game like?
Well, he is listed at 6'1". I think he's closer to 5'11", and he is probably $150 soaking wet. Because of that, I don't know if he has an NBA future. He's just not. I don't know how much weight he can be putting on either. I think he's a guy that if he wants to do this, he is going to Europe and he's making good money over there. And he's kind of a la a David Logan, to reference a North Central Panther for Jake and a UND Greyhound for me. David's, 16, 17 years removed from UND and still playing over in Europe. I think Antoine is probably that level of player. Let's mention the obvious 2 asterisks between he and Pete Maravich, all right? Antoine is going to play the equivalent of basically 4.5 years. They've missed like 15 games due to COVID and things like that during his 5-year run. But he's been a part of 5 seasons. And obviously Pete played 3, and there was no 3-point line when Pete played. Just the fact that anybody's even in the conversation with Antoine. I mean, Antoine has scored the most points anybody has in 44 years in college basketball, let alone 53 years going back to Maravich. That's insane that we're even talking about this. But he is a wonderful scorer of the basketball, great shooter, great about creating space, being a bit undersized. Maybe he gets a look from an NBA team. I think really Europe is where he ends up.
He played their game after IUPUI was against Oakland, right, Greg?
Correct,
he
Monday.
Had 14. He was 3 of 16 from the floor.
Why could he never do that against IUPUI? It would be nice if I saw one of those games one time.
Reich's got a lot of Ben Davis on his plate this weekend, Friday and Saturday. Tonight it's Carmel, tomorrow Addicts, and a County City title matchup. Greg, have a great weekend, man.
Thanks, fellas.
That's a great Greg Rakestraw right there on the Payless Liquors hotline. Dustin Keller, Jay mentioned state champ in the high jump. That's pretty impressive. A tight end.
Let me tell you, Antoine Davis was such a cute little kid. Do you remember Mike Davis carrying him around during the
picture's
O2
iconic.
run?
I've told you about Colleen Bowe and my mother getting Mike Davis's autograph in the Assembly Hall parking lot.
That's right, on a sheet of paper, right?
Throwing the ball with Antoine in the parking lot. Chandler Thompson, great 2-sport athlete. Gary Harris. Yeah, I mean, you got a lot
Gary
of names.
Harris is a good one. That's a good one. He was a great wide receiver.
You got a lot of names on this list. Greg, not Greg Rakestraw, but Greg says, played baseball Scott Rolen for 3 summers, the best dunker he's ever seen.
How about...
I could see Rolen being a...
Jeff George might have been as good at baseball as he was football, and he was, at the time, I believe, either the all-time or second all-time leading scorer in basketball at Warren Central when he left. Then Greg Graham took care of that.
And again, you're going to see a lot of this deteriorated, moving forward, Jake, sadly, because the specialization of sports. I was always curious about this with Mike Conley. Did he ever try and do track His dad was an Olympian.
Yeah, that's a good point.
But couldn't you see Conley being a great long jumper?
Yeah. You know what's fascinating? I think I've mentioned this to you before.
Does Dad win a medal?
His dad was a triple jumper, right? He was a world champion, I think, as a professional. I don't know about in the Olympics. But I have interviewed athletes, either on the radio or in television, and people laugh or snicker when you ask the question, what was your favorite sport growing up? And people are like, why would you ask that to LeBron James? Why would you ask that to, whoever, insert name of athlete? I would bet you that 60% or more of the athletes that you know of that play professional sports name a different sport as their favorite growing up.
Yeah, I would agree.
You know what I mean? And they're like, oh, man, what I really loved was, but then at some point they realize that either their ability or their body leans them towards a sport that's different than the one that they most enjoyed.
Boy, Mike Conley Sr. decorated, to say the least. 84 silver in the triple jump in L.A., won the gold in Barcelona in 92. Multiple world championship medals.
This from our buddy Ralph Reef. You guys should do an entire show on Indiana high school athletes, male and female. It's a fascinating conversation. I'll throw in Adam Shunk, who played on the state finals basketball team at Delta, went on to a University of North Carolina track and field scholarship, won the indoor NCAA high jump title, on the international track and field tour for a number of years, and is now the sports psychologist for the Pacers and Butler. That's pretty impressive.
I literally am jotting this down for July ideas.
That's right. It is good.
Yeah.
It's a good one.
It's a great, fun topic. How glorious is this Friday morning right now?
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Wow.
Sun, baby. Should I go bang on the window?
Hark! Hark! That's what he screamed in the break.
Kevin was gone, right?
Yeah, he was
right
gone, and I thought you were having a mental breakdown.
Had you not seen the sun in eons?
It was right after.
Bang on these drums all day.
It was after the holidays, and the sun rose, and I literally went to the glass and banged on it. I looked like George Costanza when the hospital doors closed. Like, 7!
It's like the Hunchback of Notre Dame, just like screaming at the bell tower.
It is such a unbelievable sight to see it this sunny right now.
I know. Well, have you seen the forecast?
Next week it's supposed to get real chilly,
overcast
right?
by 10:30. Like you get like 2 hours here. We literally are like the guys at Shawshank. We get 2 hours of sunlight and then it's right back.
George Bremer is going to join us around 9, talk more of the Colts head coaching search. I've always referred to George as the most sane member on the Colts beat, Anderson Herald Bulletin, so he's going to join us here in a bit. But let's get to the hoops from last night. Morning Checkdown.
The Morning Checkdown, brought to you by Ball State Basketball. Get your tickets at ballstatesports.com on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
We'll begin with the number one team in the land, the Boilermakers of Purdue. Now a 7-game win streak. They are 7-0 on the road. Somebody sent me a tweet and said, the thing about Purdue you got to realize is they've only beaten 3 teams in the Big Ten that are over 500 in the conference, which means that half of the teams that are over 500 in the Big Ten have been beaten by Purdue, and Purdue has done it against 3 of the 4 that they had the opportunity to do so. They also have beaten teams that are over 500 in 4 different conferences in the Power 5. But nonetheless, last night the latest win, 75-70 over the Wolverines of Michigan. Boilers now 20-1. They are 9-1 in Big Ten play. Southern Indiana, by the way, over Eastern Illinois, 78-74. Stan Gerard's guys now 13-9.
Again, the support for Zach Edey last night, really important for Purdue to get that, especially away from Mackey. The other big one last night, down in Bloomington, the Indiana women get it done. They beat number 2 Ohio State with a huge third quarter, 78-65. It's the 6th win over a ranked team this season for Terry Morin. Here was Terry Morin looking ahead a little bit on how successful this season has been.
Well, I think the potential's there. We've seen it, but I also know that this can be a funny game, right? And if you're not ready night in and night out, you're always in jeopardy of coming up short. And as I mentioned. We try to really be careful with just sort of keeping our heads down and keeping the noise out and just talking about what's next.
A little over 10,000 in the building last night. I was flipping back and forth, Jake. Every time I turned, it seemed like just a terrific atmosphere.
Totally agree. And I know a lot of students that went to the game because I think you get free admission to the women's games. But, I think down in Bloomington, the word's gotten around the campus, right? Like, hey, these girls are good. Let's go watch them play, and people have enjoyed it.
Kenzie Holmes with 26 last night for the Hoosiers. All right, tonight, Jake, over at Gamebridge Fieldhouse, Pacers-Bucks. First time Giannis in the building this year. 6:30, our coverage will begin. We've mentioned it earlier, and I get that Milwaukee is a really good basketball team. They have absolutely dominated the Pacers. They've won 9 straight, all of them by at least 9 points. They beat them by 13 a few weeks ago without Giannis or Chris Middleton. Sounds like both of them will be back in the lineup. On the injury front for the Pacers, doesn't sound like anything Tyrese Halliburton update-wise, so this was supposed to be the reevaluation date. Yesterday was, technically. But again, Halliburton has mentioned maybe more the end of the month. So next Thursday, Lakers. Next Friday, Kings, maybe there. But Miles Turner listed as questionable with a right ankle injury. So the fact that he's not already ruled out, it's a good indicator that he avoided a somewhat serious injury the other night in Orlando.
Last night in the association, by the way, it was the Knicks over the Celtics, 120-117. Pistons over the Nets, 130-122. Charlotte, Cleveland, Dallas, and the Clippers all getting wins as well. The Clippers, by the way, on a 4-game win streak, got 35 from Paul George, 27 from Kawhi Leonard.
And one more on the NBA front. We had the All-Star starters announced last night. In the East, Donovan Mitchell, Kyrie Irving, Jason Tatum, Kevin Durant, Giannis Antetokounmpo, no Joel Embiid for the East starters. Out West, that is Steph Curry, Luka Doncic, LeBron James, Zion Williamson, Nikola Jokic. The voting for that is a combination of media, players, and fans. Tyrese Halliburton was 5th among East guards, so the third reserve, if you will. He was voted 3rd by the media, so the media thinks pretty highly of him. 6th by players, 8th by fans. Next Thursday, we'll get the All-Star reserves announced, and those are strictly voted on by coaches. Jake, with how Tyrese Halliburton plays the game of basketball, I think the coaches will think pretty highly of him, put him on the team.
One would hope, right? The only thing that would hold him back seemingly would be, I guess, maybe the team or the market. But one would hope that Tyrese Halliburton, I do think, yes, he is highly thought of, obviously, around the league.
All-Star game number 19, by the way, for LeBron James, tying Kareem for the most.
One other note from college basketball. Late last night, the news coming out, condolences to the family, not that they're listening to this program, but of Billy Packer, who was an analyst for 34 straight Final Fours at both NBC and CBS. He was an Emmy Award winner in 1993 for Best Sports Analyst. Packer, who, of course, had played at Wake Forest and coached at Lehigh, passing away at the age, his dad had coached at Lehigh. He passed away at the age of 82. If you are literally probably of my age group or even younger or older, either side, Billy Packer's voice was absolutely synonymous with the biggest games in college basketball. He passed away of kidney failure, again, at the age of 82.
Jake, I'm showing my age a little bit here, but he was probably one of the first names that I kind of remember as a broadcaster. And you know what? Some of it probably...
that's true, yeah, for a lot of people.
Some of it probably had to do with, the national title tips pretty late on those Monday nights. And, hey, can I stay up till halftime?
Totally,
hey, can I stay up a little bit later? And obviously Billy Packer's voice, a huge, huge part of that. All right, when we come back, we'll get back into the Colts head coaching search. Update you there. Again, Dan Quinn pulling his name out of all searches around the league. The impact on that here in Indy. We'll explain more coming up next. And looking ahead to championship weekend. Eagles and 49ers. Some rooting interest there for the Colts on several levels. And then Bengals and Chiefs from Arrowhead on Sunday evening. Kevin and Corey, 93.5, 107.5, The Fan.
I never write reviews, but Navage is so amazing, I had to leave one. Nothing's ever cleared out my sinuses as well. I'm blown away by how Navage works. That's a review from Carrie, and it's one of over 100,000 online testimonials praising Navage. I'm Martin Hoke, the inventor of Navage Nasal Care, and I've talked about flushing out allergens, viruses, mucus, and germs. How Navage's powered suction can help you breathe better, and how your nose is the body's air filter, and Navage will clean it out. But don't take my word for it. What do people like Chad say, who wrote, Navage has helped clear out my nasal passages every single night. My wife says my snoring has gone way down. Snorefest be gone, unquote. Navage is the all-natural solution trusted by over 3 million customers to help you breathe better, sleep deeper, snore less, and stay healthier without drugs. Navage is available at Walmart, Walgreens, CVS, Rite Aid, Target, and online. Navage, N-A-V-A-G-E. Clean nose, healthy life.
At Diamonds Direct, we want to make something very clear. We will absolutely beat the price of any comparable diamond that you find anywhere else. No fine print, no disclaimers, just a rock-solid, unqualified, nationwide price guarantee. This goes for 1-carat diamonds as well as 15 and 20-carat diamonds. You see, at Diamonds Direct, we're more than just another jewelry store. We're part of a world diamond powerhouse with direct access to the world's top diamond mines. We have our own diamond cutters too, so we are active in every aspect of the diamond market every single day, from source to showroom. So when you see a diamond somewhere else, online or in a store, or from some so-called supplier, just know that apples for apples, you will get a better price at Diamonds Direct. Our volume, our connections, our buying power make this possible, and it's why we've never ever lost a sale due to price. So at a time when value means so much, we invite you to take this challenge and let us prove it. Day in and day out, you will always get a better quality diamond at a better price at Diamonds Direct. Diamonds Direct, your love, our passion. Online at diamondsdirect.com.
Get the absolute best price on cars, trucks, and SUVs at Tom Wood Used Cars of Greenwood. Shop for your family cars, gas savers, work trucks, and commuter cars. Buy with confidence at Tom Wood Used Cars of Greenwood, as most vehicles come with complimentary lifetime powertrain coverage. That's no-cost lifetime powertrain coverage over and above the manufacturer's coverage. It's all at Tom Wood Used Cars of Greenwood, the home of guaranteed credit, located at Stop 18 and US 31 in Greenwood.
It's all good at Tom Wood.
Get in zone, AutoZone.
Welcome to AutoZone. What are you working on today? Starting trouble. No one likes that. We'll get you set up for some stronger starts. You might just need a fresh charge, and we'll take care of that free of charge. But if it is time for a new battery, we've got replacement batteries that'll fit your needs, starting at just $79.99. You can learn more about our battery selection at AutoZone.com. That's what makes us America's #1 battery destination.
Get in the zone, AutoZone.
Claim based on data from the NPD Group 2021.
It has no beginning.
Let's start something special right here, man. Let's go.
And no end.
Look, you got to get your team ready to play.
It is a constant.
Get a rhythm going.
Through every season.
Come back again.
It is always Colts season. Firing, hiring, free agency, the combine, the schedule, the draft, OTAs, minicamp, training camp, kickoff. The off-season questions is a season to be answered for this Colts team. The best Colts coverage is on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan. You're listening to Kevin and Query on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
I think tonight we need to head over to Richmond.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm. Find Jack Allen.
Got a big game between Richmond and Muncie Central tonight?
Well,
what's going on
I'm
there?
not sure that Jack Allen will be there, but he might be a fun guy to hang out with if we want to go see the game. Jack Allen, by the way, this is from a guy named Jeff Lane, who's I think a reporter, maybe a radio reporter over in Richmond. Jack Allen was arrested at Richmond's Walmart last night after climbing onto a motorized shopping cart, getting a 12-pack and cracking open beer after beer while just simply cruising around the inside of the store. Jack makes his own fun.
Oh, man. I mean, hell, he should come and be the Pacers halftime show entertainment tonight, right?
Yeah, there's a guy. What kind of beer do you think?
Well, probably
Jack
PBR.
PBR.
Oh yeah,
he had his own PBR party.
Drink of choice.
Do you think he went cold, or he just straight off the warm shelf and let's
that's the
let's
thing.
have at it?
Can you buy cold beer at Walmart?
That's a good question. I can't
Do you
say.
think he bought? Do you think he got a cooler and put it in the little motorized scooter and then was just whipping around?
Don't mind me. I'll be turn 3 in May. I'm just getting a head start on this.
I mean,
you guys are gonna find this shocking. I've got to go close the blinds. The sun is just piercing in on this Friday morning.
It's gonna set in like an hour. Just deal with it. Can you imagine living, by the way, if you lived on the very eastern end of a time zone? Like if you go to Milwaukee, the Bucks are in tonight at Gainbridge Fieldhouse taking on the Pacers. Chicago, the same thing in Nashville. Like we went to we go to Milwaukee every year right before Christmas, and you get up there, it's dark at like 4:30.
Oh yeah, my wife hated it when she lived in Chicago. You leave work and it's pitch black.
I mean, that would be rough, man.
Another July topic. Let's get into a daylight savings time debate. Sounds like no more time for Dan Quinn on the head coach interview circuit. He was supposed to come to Indianapolis tomorrow for a second interview. Jake, when you saw this news, your initial reaction was what?
I was a little bit surprised because this is the natural cynic or pessimist in me, I guess, but there was a part of me that saw it as a slight to Indianapolis. And then where else did he go? Arizona?
I think he had a second interview in Arizona, maybe even Denver.
However, he's been a head coach. He's been to the top because he went to the Super Bowl. I know he didn't win it, but still, he went to a Super Bowl. So part of me also wondered, you know what, maybe some guys are just like, hey, I'm cool. Like, I mean, I'm still going to make, probably $1 million a year as a coordinator, a little bit more heat off of me.
Do you look at it as any reflection on what is here? What would be attractive about this?
Yeah, I think you could. I think if you wanted to make that argument or have that discussion.
Were you at the Richmond Walmart last night?
I was with Jack running around. I think if you wanted to do it that way, you could. If you wanted to look at it that way. But I will lean towards benefit of the doubt and simply say that he's a guy perhaps that just thought, you know what, in Dallas there's some good pieces here, and there's so many factors, Kevin, that you just don't know about. I mean, I don't know how old his kids are, if he has kids. I don't even know. He might have a house he loves where he currently, there's so many things that go into it. It certainly is peculiar, and it's not a great look that a guy would turn down a possible or remove himself from a possible head coaching search. But it wasn't like Indianapolis was the only team. This wasn't a Josh McDaniels situation.
Right. No, yeah, I don't put it anywhere close to that stock. I do think it's worthy to note that for those that are looking for head coaching experience, for those that want that in the Colts' next head coach, your head coaching experience on the candidate list right now looks like this. Raheem Morris, who was the head coach of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers from 2009 to 2011, I want to say. So over a decade ago there. And Jeff Saturday. 7 games as an interim head coach. You got scares a lot of fans or no?
What would be scary about it?
Some thinking you've gone coordinator. I mean, hell, I guess Caldwell falls into it too, but let's just stick with Pagano and Reich. You've gone coordinator higher in each of those two,
right?
Not having head coaching experience. Do you feel like, again, making these 180s in these coaching hires?
I think most people.
I'm not as big into it, but I understand people that
I think people would rather have what is perceived to be. Coordinators are always the big, coordinators are in the NFL what mid-major NCAA tournament run coaches are in college basketball. Like, that's the guy you got to get. That's oh, man, did you see this guy had an unbelievable run with Dayton or look what they did in the tournament with Northern Iowa, and so now they're going to get a head coaching job, and then you kind of never hear from them again. And coordinators are kind of the same thing. They are seen as the glass is half full with this guy, whereas a guy who has been a previous head coach, the glass is half empty. It's like, well, yeah, okay, but why didn't he do anything there? So I think that is what gives people pause. Is they want to avoid the quote unquote retread. You know what I mean?
Someone's messaging me.
I do like Raheem Morris. I'm telling you.
Which I think, seeing Dan Quinn, seeing Ben Johnson do what they've done, it's a little bit of a dangerous game. I mean, just a year ago, Byron Leftwich was viewed as, oh, yeah, he's definitely going to be a head coach. Then he just got fired in Tampa.
Yeah.
So it is a little bit of a dangerous game to play. Someone messaged me this earlier, Jake. Are you surprised that Jeff Saturday / his agent has not leaked out like who a potential offensive coordinator would be? Or who a potential defensive coordinator would be? Like, could that, in the eye of public opinion...
I'm not surprised by that, and I'll tell you why. Because what if it's not in step with what the Colts want. Like, if I'm Jeff Saturday, I'm probably under the guise of, like, listen, if I get this head coaching opportunity, then we can discuss who to bring in as, you know, I'm playing it like, yeah, you know, I'll do whatever you need me to do because Jeff Saturday wants that job. If Jeff Saturday says, listen, I'm going to bring Dan Orlovsky and Herm Edwards and then, you know,
Rex Ryan,
Susie Colbert on special teams and Rex Ryan, yeah, I mean, you know, then it may be easier for that may cross him off the list right there. So I not to mention, I don't know that, I mean, Jeff Saturday surely has an agent, right? I mean, the interim hire for him, though, wasn't even necessarily, there was no agent negotiation. That was a direct one-on-one conversation.
How much do you think he got paid for those 2 months?
$1 million.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking.
Which would be the reason why you're like, you know what? I'll do this full time.
I'm not 100% sure. Yeah, I've gotten the question a lot. Is Frank Reich getting paid now by two organizations?
Okay.
4-year deal in Carolina is the report there. He had, 4 years left here, right?
Typically. So I knew a college basketball coach who had a big-time job. And a big-time job, like within a major Power 5 conference, full-time, multi-million-dollar deal. And when that coach got let go, still had like 3 years left in the contract, had opportunity to coach at a couple of mid-majors at that point, and declined out of spite to make sure that his buyout had to be paid in entirety by the team that had fired him. Meaning, I can't speak for the NFL, Kevin, but in coaching in college, oftentimes, a buyout in a contract is owed until the coach gets compensation for a like job elsewhere, at which point it then only becomes the difference. So in other words, if Frank Reich, if this is true theoretically, and Frank Reich was owed how much per year by the Colts?
$9 million.
$9 million per year for the Colts. If Carolina is paying him $5 million a year, then that means the Colts are now only paying him $4 million. So they just have to make up the difference.
Coaching contracts are weird in the NFL. They're not all the cookie cutter same.
Right.
So I don't know 100%. And honestly, Jake, I don't really care too much just because it's not like this impacts salary cap.
Okay, but could it impact this? If Jim Irsay, let's say Jim Irsay fired Chris Ballard, thinking that everything was going to turn around instantly. And let's say Jim Irsay got impatient and said, you know what, it didn't turn around instantly, which means, let's say Jim Irsay fired Frank Reich, So Jim Irsay fires Frank Reich thinking things are going to turn around quickly. I'm going to get Jeff Saturday in here. We're going to find out things. And then let's say that Jim Irsay realized, wait a minute, things actually went even further south once I removed Frank Reich. So maybe the problem was the roster. But I'm still paying Frank Reich $9 million a year, so I had to make a decision. Maybe I made the wrong one, but I got rid of a guy. If he no longer now has to pay that amount to Frank Reich, does that accelerate his thinking of, okay, now I have the financial flexibility to rid myself of Chris Ballard also, should I choose to do so?
Yeah, I hear you out. I don't think you can run the show like that, though.
Well, I mean, sure, I don't disagree with you.
Yeah, I think it's more.
And I don't think that Jim Irsay's Al Davis by any stretch of the imagination. I don't think he's Mark Davis. I don't think he's Jerry Jones. I don't.
I think he's more ego than finances.
I think he is very reactionary.
I think he really likes Chris Ballard.
That may be. Yeah, that may be.
But I guess what I was getting at is paying Frank Reich and paying another head coach, that ultimately just comes out of Jim Irsay's pocket. It's not like it's impacting the Colts' salary cap.
And it's not.
It's not keeping you from.
It ain't impacting Jim Irsay's salary cap. I mean, for crying out loud. And that's where I do think that Jim Irsay, while I think his eccentricities are fun, interesting, and in most cases beneficial to the market, there are times where, for example, if the Colts season goes south again and he continues to pay Chris Ballard and it's under, even if he doesn't say so, If it's under some sort of an understanding that it's a financial reason to keep people around, then that's all well and good, but people are going to get tired of hearing about spending $9 million on guitars because they're going to be like, wait a minute, which is the priority here? And those are the little things that add up.
This from Nick. If the Colts hire Jeff, are they canning for Arch Manning?
No. Nope. Arch Manning is not even eligible for 3 years. It does rhyme.
It's kind of a new hashtag, though. Canning for Manning?
Yeah. He's not eligible for 3 years. That is an eternity in the NFL. Eternity.
George Bremer going to join us here in about 15 minutes. Again, Anderson Harrell-Bolton on the Colts Daily Beat. Really respect George, and hopefully he'll bring some good insight into what he has thought about the last, I guess now we're approaching 3 weeks since the season ended in this Colts coaching search. And we'll get into, again, championship weekend coming up on Sunday. Kevin Bowen, Jake Query, Mark Dykton, 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
You've undoubtedly heard of the calm before the storm. Well, Michaelis is the calm after the storm. More than 3 decades of restoring damage from wind, rain, and hail. They've got your back, not to mention your front, side, and roof. It's why home and business owners beat a path to Michaelis' door, because it's always answered around the clock with welcome arms. Your port in the storm. From site security and tarping services to complete restoration work, they can handle anything Mother Nature throws your way. Seasoned and trustworthy pros who are never deterred by a little wind and rain, or a mother load of it for that matter. Water, storms, fire, and foundations. Life happens. Michaelis happens to help you through it. Call 844-FIX-INDY. Make it Michaelis.
The Venture X card from Capital One gives you premium travel benefits, perfect for seeing Taylor Swift The Eras Tour. Presented by Capital One. Oh, I do love her. Earn 5 times miles on flights and 10 times miles on hotels through Capital One Travel.
Enjoy your stay in Suite 13.
Whoa, 13? That's Taylor's lucky number. The Venture X card from Capital One. What's in your wallet?
Terms apply. See CapitalOne.com for details.
Score. Pass. Out of bounds. Those are sports words. Some people hear any sports word and they can't help but listen. Like drive. Drive is another sports word. And drivers who switch and save with Progressive could save hundreds. You might say those savings are on par with the best in the league. You see, par is also a sports word, so I know you're still listening. And that's called covering our bases. Okay, I'm done now. But I'm serious about drivers saving big with Progressive. Now I'm really done.
Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Potential savings will vary.
Ray Magliozzi here for eBay Motors. So you ordered a new air filter for your car. You try to install it, but it doesn't fit. So you take a little bit off the sides. Well, it still doesn't fit? Well, you could try to sit on it. Or get it right the first time with eBay Motors Guaranteed Fit. When you see the check, you know that part's going to fit. Air filters, brakes, headlights, over 122 million parts. Get the right parts at the right prices. eBay Motors, let's ride.
Experienced commercial HVAC technicians, plumbers, and sewer and drain specialists, listen up. Vasey Commercial Facility Solutions is seeking new talent. Do you feel energized, fulfilled, and appreciated? If not, improve your life in 2023. Realize true work-life balance with full benefits. To learn more, call Vasey Commercial Facility Solutions at 317-873-2512 or visit their website, vasey.com. That's VASEY.com.
I'm Janiyah. I'm an Indy Public Schools student at Belize Circle City High School. My classmates and I need your help. There's a plan out there right now that would give more money to white students in some public schools at the expense of black students in schools like mine that also need resources. We're talking thousands of dollars per student. That adds up, so we're asking for your help. The school board could vote on this unfair plan soon, and they need to hear from you. Call 317-226-4418 and ask the board to fund all students fairly. That's 317-226-4418.
Paid for by Empowered Families.
Soccer Saturday featuring Indy 11. If this is your football, this is your show. Saturday at 9 on The Fan. You're listening to Kevin and Query on 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Hey, Jim says, I would assume Jeff Saturday's coaches of coordinators are presently employed with other teams, so Jeff and his agent cannot let those names leak. I don't know.
Tell me if you agree with this. Jeff Saturday in the second interview would have had to tell the Colts who his staff was going to be.
Oh, without question. I mean, hell, he needs to do that in his first interview.
Think so?
Yeah, you got to present your grand vision.
I guess.
First interview is about getting to know all the other candidates. You know Jeff Saturday. You want to know what this grand vision is.
But you know, Saturday's got to know who the Colts. Maybe he just says names that he thinks the Colts would want to hear. I don't think
Jeff Saturday was spending too much time on the rushing yards per game and the first quarter leads on the resume. I don't think that would have gone very far. I think you would need to quickly get to your organization is in utter dysfunction. This is my grand vision, and these are the people that I'm bringing in here.
I would be
to
curious to know who he would say as offensive coordinator. Who would your guess be?
Dan Orlovsky.
You really do think so?
Hell, I think Orlovsky was tweeting about it yesterday. Mentioned that he'd bring Wentz back. Scary thought to start your Friday morning. Ken wanted to talk about the relationship between the powers that be inside the Colts organization. Ken, good Friday morning to you.
Hey, good morning, guys. How are y'all doing today?
Splendid. Yourself?
Oh, fantastic. Getting ready for a big day of work. So
hey, at least the sun's shining.
But it's Friday and the sun's shining. Yes, cold as all get out here. But the whole last year just keeps replaying in my mind, and I go back to when you guys were really talking to Ballard last year in press conferences about our offensive line, our wide receivers, trying to get, ask him what he was going to do about it. He told him you all needed to back off kind of heatedly, and that he knew how to do his job. At the end of the season, Frank Reich and Chris Ballard get their asses handed to them by Irsay. And I just wonder how much of that really played out throughout this season, because Frank did not look like the same coach that he had been the year before. And the play calling was probably the worst I've ever seen in my life. So I just wonder how much damage had been done with some of those meetings with Irsay.
Here's what I think happened.
Thanks, Ken.
Ken, I appreciate it. I think this is what happened. Kevin, you feel free to tell me if you disagree with this. I think that the Colts had some serious internal disciplinary and maturity problems. And they had players that were missing curfew, not doing some of the things that needed to be done, not focused in to the point where you would most want it. And Jim Irsay felt like that was an indictment on Frank Reich, and that Reich had lost the locker room and that there was no accountability from the coaching position. So they made a change. They brought in Jeff Saturday. Saturday tried his darndest to instill that via fines, suspensions, and even release of players, and the results still never changed, at which point that then shifted perhaps a little bit of the focus towards, is it actually the problem of how the roster was built or the judgment of the character of the people that we're bringing in? And they won't know that for certain until they get a full-time coach in there that can then fully give them the barometer to assess that. And by that, I mean then evaluating Chris Ballard.
Yeah, I think a big mistake that Jim Irsay has made here in his evaluation 2022 Colts is thinking that the roster is a lot better than it is. I think he said that Monday night in November when Frank Reich was fired and Chris Ballard and Jeff Saturday were up there. I think he believes the personnel is in much better shape. And I know we've touched on it here and there throughout the week. Look at these Final Four teams. Look at the skill positions that these Final Four teams, all of them are infinitely better than the Colts. Better, deeper, more versatile, more potent, dynamic, whatever word you want to use. The Colts offensively were one of the worst units you've seen in the NFL in years, and it was because your quarterback didn't support you and you didn't support your quarterback. The Colts have tried to skate by, particularly at wide receiver and tight end, and then obviously offensive line rose up a little bit. But, even a little bit of running back, when you see these teams, there's multiple guys that they throw at you. I mean, the Nyheim Hines thing didn't work out, and his usage, and to Ken's point, I think that was very odd to me. When Jonathan Taylor went down, it was just kind of a patchwork group of, you don't really have dynamic threats out of the backfield as receivers. I think that is an issue too. So I think it's a mistake that Irsay doesn't view personnel as more of a serious issue.
Here's an interesting question that I was just asked, and I don't want to sound like a jerk in my response because I'm going to be emphatic about this response, and I understand the question. I do. I appreciate it and I respect it. Jake, what if Jeff Saturday is dropping Peyton Manning as a possible coach/consultant? Zero chance. And the reason I say that, I shouldn't say zero. We don't know behind closed doors what may be discussed. But, number one, as I've mentioned before, if you look at what has happened to Jeff Saturday's image and or legacy in Indianapolis within the Colts fan base in the last 4 months, then you see, number one, Peyton Manning, who is the most conscientious of his image with a fan base of any athlete I have ever seen. That's reason number one why Peyton Manning, I'm sure, has no interest in coaching for the Colts. Number two, if Peyton Manning was going to coach for the Colts, it's going to be as the head coach. Number three, if Peyton Manning is going to be a consultant, he's not going to be a consultant. He's going to be in the front office running the entire show. And number four, and most importantly, Peyton Manning's got a pretty cush life right now. He's doing what he wants to do. He's having fun with the Omaha Productions. He's doing the Manning cast. He is able to. Peyton Manning has options. Not that Jeff Saturday didn't, who does a great job at ESPN, but Peyton Manning has options. And so I'm just telling you, Peyton Manning is not going to come to Indianapolis to be standing on the sidelines with a headset working with Jeff Saturday.
If Peyton Manning is ever going to work in the NFL, Jake, for a team, he's going to do it with ownership stake, and he's going to do it as team president.
Correct.
Could never see him coaching. Let's sneak Ray in before we get to George Bremer. What's up, Ray?
Hey, Kevin. How are you?
Doing good, man. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks. Hey, quick question. You've been on the inside a little bit. Is there an establishment in the NFL like Cowher and the guys that came out so angry against the Saturday hiring, and because of that, is that keeping a lot of the top-level coaches from showing an interest in Indianapolis?
Yeah, that's a fair question. I think there is a lot of anger towards the Colts and Jim Irsay and how they've handled it. Again, Jake, at the end of the day, there's just 32 of these.
Right.
So I don't want to act like everyone's going to be all high and mighty and, we got to stick with the fraternity and, blah, blah, blah. But I do think the con list for taking the job here is probably a little bit longer than it is in other places of these 5 openings right now. And I would say that is one of the reasons. I don't think it's incredibly high on the list, but I do think if you're weighing 2 openings, it could be a reason why you would all, want to go down the other path than come here to Indianapolis.
Carolina and Arizona right now, I mean, Carolina just made a hire, obviously. Arizona is a better job than the Colts for this reason. It's in the NFC. I mean, to begin with, let's just start there. It's in the NFC. You're not having to go through Joe Burrow, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson.
That's a good point.
Justin Herbert, and Patrick Mahomes to get to the Super Bowl.
Like, it's a bit of a golden age for quarterbacks in the AFC, Jake.
Unbelievable.
But it's the 20-year-old golden age. Not the 30-year-olds like you had with Manning, Brady, Roethlisberger, Rivers. That's the scary aspect to it all. Speaking of that golden age, we'll talk some conference championships coming up in the 9 o'clock hour. Give out our picks to round out the show. George Bremer joins us next from the Anderson Herald Bulletin to chat about the Colts.
Has no beginning.
The start of something special right here, man. Let's go.
And no end.
Look, you got to get your team ready to play.
It is a constant.
Get a rhythm going.
Through every season.
Come back again.
It is always Colts season. Firing, hiring, free agency, the combine, the schedule, the draft, OTAs, minicamp, training camp, kickoff, the offseason questions. Is a season to be answered for this Colts team. The best Colts coverage is on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Hey, it's JMV, and maintain winter road readiness at your 14 Central Indiana CarX locations. Oil changes, tires, brakes, and more. 14 to serve you. That's CarX.com today.
Bowling, 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 keep them balls a-rolling. Bowling, 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 Royal Pin.
The U.S. Open is returning to Royal Pin Woodland. Start the major PBA tournament off with Bowl with the Pros on January 29th with 2 squad times available, 4 p.m. and 7 p.m. Bowlers of all ages are guaranteed to bowl with 6 of the PBA's top professionals competing in the U.S. Open. Don't stop there. Get your tickets to watch the bowlers compete for the major title and Green Jacket live on Fox. 2 shows available. Visit bowl.com/US Open to sign up to Bowl with the Pros and get your tickets to the live finals. Or call Woodland at 317-844-4099. That's 317-844-4099.
Royal Pin, bowling, bowling. Royal Pin, bowling.
It's the final days to save big store-wide at the Truckload event at Lowe's. Right now, get deals on select major appliances and take home what you buy same day. And save an additional 10% on all in-store clearance appliances. Plus, get savings on even more items across the store, like up to 40% off select bathroom products. Hurry and head to your local Lowe's store or visit Lowes.com to shop the Truckload event today. Exclusions apply. While supplies last. Selection varies by location. See Lowes.com for details. Valid 1/26 through 2/8.
Hey, it's Dan Dockich for Affinity Whole Health. Guys, do something for yourselves. Go to feelgreatindy.com. I'm on a testosterone replacement program with Affinity. Let me tell you, the benefits are amazing. Go to feelgreatindy.com. That's feelgreatindy.com.
93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
WIBC HD2, W298BB, WIBC HD3, W228CX, Indianapolis.
The Pacers welcome the Milwaukee Bucks to the Fieldhouse this evening at 6:30 on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
I think you know me.
It's Kevin and Query on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
It is 9 o'clock in Indianapolis. Technically speaking, it's 9 o'clock everywhere in the Eastern Time Zone. My name is Jake Query. Kevin Bowen, the other voice you hear on this program. Mark Dykton manning the controls for us. It's Kevin and Query on 93.5, 107.5 The Fan. Joining us now on the Payless Siggers Hotline. What are you yelling at me, Mark?
I had to call him back. It was very staticky. I'm calling him back.
Kevin, that might be the best intro I've had all week.
No, that was smooth delivery, everything. 9 o'clock on a Friday, but yeah, Mark.
I waited literally.
I thought Mark did announce. I'm going to call him back because of the static.
We work 15 hours a week together. I waited until hour 15 to really nail it, right?
Do you want to restart that?
Yeah, sure. That's not a bad idea.
No? From the top, please.
Okay. 9 o'clock hour in Indianapolis. How are you? Technically speaking, it's 9 o'clock everywhere in the Eastern Time Zone. My name is Jake Query. Kevin Bowen, the other voice you hear on this program. Mark Dykton is just kind of abruptly jerking the wheel and hitting the brake pedal for us while manning the controls.
Please.
Well, I said the wheel, Mark. Joining us now on the Payless Siggers Hotline, and I'm sure thrilled to be doing so. George Bremer joins us. I always get confused if it's the Anderson Herald Bulletin or Bulletin Herald.
Herald Bulletin.
Herald Bulletin.
Right, George?
Right, Herald Bulletin.
Okay. Got it. I always refer to George as the most sane member of the Colts beat, by the way.
Anderson High School tonight, they need somebody to do the public address for the JV and varsity basketball games. It is a paid gig.
Oh, look at that.
George, if you'd like to do it, send me a text, or if anybody else would like to, they know my telephone number. Send me a text, and we will get you up to doing the game tonight for Anderson basketball. George, your opinion right now, I'll go two. In your opinion, the two front runners for the Colts head coaching job are who?
Well, I mean, one of them's got to be Jeff Saturday. We all know that. When the owner's in your corner, it's a pretty good weapon to have. Outside of that, it's really hard to say. There's been so much of a lockdown right now on this search. I mean, I don't think Chris Ballard has let anything out on his end. The only other name that I've really heard at all, as far as interviewing well and them having a lot of interest in, is Raheem Morris. So I'll go with him right now. I'll go with Saturday and Morris.
George, what about this weekend? Names that you're curious about. Again, D'Amico Ryans from San Francisco. We know that he can't talk with the Colts. He has not yet talked with the Colts, but he can't until their season's over. So if you want interest in D'Amico Ryans, cheer for the Eagles. Eagles offense coordinator Shane Steichen, Bengals OC Brian Callahan, Kansas City OC Eric Bieniemy. Who intrigues you out of those four?
Yeah, I think Callahan, his history with quarterbacks has been well documented. I think a lot of people have talked a lot about that since he's kind of come on the radar. I was surprised he didn't get more interest than he did. The fact that the Colts are really the only head coach interview he got, it was a little bit surprising to me. His dad was an offensive line coach, still is an offensive line coach in the NFL. I think that is an interesting element for him, given the importance of improving that unit here in Indy. I think he would be in a unique position to kind of affect the offense as a whole, not just grooming a young quarterback and kind of getting him up in the swing, but also, really understanding that offensive line element. The other guy's Bieniemy, just because it's been real quiet. I mean, we didn't even know he was interviewing. He was one of the guys that the Jim Irsay tweet was the first time that, we knew they had requested him. And you haven't heard a whole lot since. But in the last day or two, there's really been a lot more reporting that he's a serious contender here. And obviously Bieniemy's been a head coaching candidate now since, I think, 2019. So he's another guy, the work that he's done out there with Patrick Mahomes, it would be interesting to see him paired with a rookie quarterback.
Let's stay there for a second. And George Bremer, who covers the Colts from the Anderson Herald Bulletin, is with us on the Payless Liquors hotline. If I'm looking for Chris Ballard connections with these candidates, you could point to Dan Quinn, probably a little bit more of an Ed Dodds connection, who's the right-hand man to Chris Ballard. But I think Dan Quinn would have been one of those guys, but we know he no longer is interested. The two that I would put most of having background with Ballard would be the name you just brought up, Eric Bieniemy, and also Rich Bisaccia, the special teams coordinator in Green Bay, most recently before that, the interim with the Raiders. There's Raiders connections on the Colts staff. There's a Rod Marinelli connection that Chris Ballard is very, very close with. So Bieniemy and Bisaccia, should we be putting a little bit more stock maybe into those names, George, if we're trying to find the Ballard-specific connection?
I mean, that he's got more of an opportunity to do his homework, to get all the info he needs on those two guys than probably anybody else in this search. He, like you mentioned, you got Rod Marinelli, who he respects as well as anybody in the league, who he can call right now and learn anything he needs to learn about Bisaccia, not to mention his entire defensive staff, right, who were there with him last year in Vegas when they made that amazing run and almost or did make the playoffs. I think Bisaccia is the only interim coach ever to do that, to make the playoffs during his reign. So, I think he's kind of a stealth candidate here. And then Bieniemy, if there is anybody that Ballard respects more than Rod Marinelli, it might be Andy Reid. And so I would imagine any question he has about why Bieniemy hasn't gotten a job before this and what his real duties are over there, Chris Ballard's going to have that info from probably several angles. So I think that always helps, right? I mean, the better you know a candidate, the more comfortable you are in bringing them in and making the hire.
George Bremer is our guest. He's on the Payless Liquors hotline. He is with CNHI Sports Indiana. Technically speaking, he's the executive editor, but also the Colts beat writer and editor for the Herald Bulletin in Anderson. George, is there any way the Colts go anywhere but quarterback in the draft? And if so, is that because they're going to do another run at a veteran quarterback?
It's hard to imagine them going down that road again, but after the season that we just went through and all of us witnessed, I'm not going to say never on anything, I think we've seen, that all options are on the table. But after the way this carousel has spun, and I know you're going to hear Aaron Rodgers' name and Derek Carr's name and maybe Lamar Jackson. We'll see how all that plays out in Baltimore. But outside of Jackson, who's really still a very young quarterback, and you could make a really good case that he would be here for 10 to 12 years, their goal has got to be to get off this ride. I mean, I think more than anything else, outside of the head coach situation this offseason, and really Chris Ballard made reference to it in that postseason presser that he did, that, if there's one thing that he really regrets, it's not being able to kind of solidify this quarterback spot and really kind of let this team start moving forward in one direction. But, we also know that he's a guy that's very strong in his convictions. And so if there's not a quarterback out there in this draft that he feels like is either A, worth trading up for, or B, worth that number 4 overall pick, we know that he will go in a different direction and he will stay with, what he believes in his evaluations.
George Bremer's with us. Again, the most sane member of the Colts beat is how I refer to George. Appreciate his time here on this Friday morning. George, I want to go back to Bieniemy for a second here and think, you know what? The Colts have interviewed a lot of candidates. Could they hire a couple of these candidates? One to be the head coach, of course, and what about a coordinator? Honestly, Ejiro Evero would fall into that group as well. Could he be a defensive coordinator candidate here if you hire more of an offensive-minded head coach? But focus on Bieniemy, there's some reason why he's not getting a job. And I would say part of that is because people look at him in Kansas City and think, oh, that's all Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes. Would he want to leave there, get a chance to run the offensive show? Like, let's say they hire Raheem Morris or Evero as their defensive coordinator, and they need more of an offensive guy, kind of the opposite of what Matt Eberflus was for Frank Reich. Could Bieniemy be in play as an offensive coordinator and saying, I've got to get out of Kansas City to further my or build my resume more to be an attractive head coaching candidate?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I'd say if I'm the most sane member of the beat, it's really kind of scary for our beat.
That's probably a fair bet.
But absolutely, I think that you could see them hire multiple guys out of this cycle. I mean, I think it's part of the reason that the net is so wide. You're trying to get a lot of ideas from guys who have done good things in this league. I think you've seen teams, not to this extent, but you've seen teams do that every offseason, bring in some coaches just with the idea of picking their brain and finding out, how they do the things that they do. But Bieniemy is taking some other offensive coordinator interviews, I know, around the league. He's one of
Tennessee, I saw.
Yeah, Tennessee, I think Washington. I thought there's at least 3 that he's in the mix for. So I think it comes down to exactly what you were talking about with him. People look at his candidacy over the years. They look at what Andy Reid's done. They look at how unique Patrick Mahomes is. And I think there is benefit on Bieniemy's side in getting away from that situation, calling his own offense, doing it in another town, doing it for another franchise, and that might boost his candidacy down the road. I think he would definitely be interested in the right situation in doing that. And his contract's up in Kansas City. I think that's another unique thing for him. This is it for him as far as his deal goes. He's a free agent as soon as their season ends. So, I think he's definitely in play. I would think Evero is, as you mentioned, he's a really young coach. I think this is his first year as a coordinator. Obviously, Denver's going through a staff change there. And if recent reports are true and DeMeco Ryans is sort of emerging as the favorite out there, maybe he's going to want to move on as well and not necessarily run the defense for a defensive head coach. And then I think Bisaccia is on that list as well. I don't know what his status is right now in Green Bay, but, he's another guy that you would think you would have interest in if he has interest in moving over, to run the special teams if they're not able to retain Bubba Ventrone.
George Bremer is our guest. George, is it possible, Kevin and I have talked about this, I mean, I've brought this up a couple times this week, so I want your perspective on it. Is it in any way, shape, or form possible that Jeff Saturday was brought in his interim stint under a different criteria than most coaches, and that, in fact, Jim Irsay may have been sold on a job that Jeff Saturday was doing because it came with different expectation than simply wins and losses, despite Saturday saying it's a wins and losses game?
I mean, anything's possible, and that was such an odd hiring to begin with. I mean, I don't think we've ever seen anything like it in the modern NFL era, where you brought in somebody mid-season who wasn't with the team, in training camp, who hadn't been around the franchise like on a daily basis in 10, 11 years at the time that he came in, walked into the door. I know he was a consultant, but it's not like he was at practice, in the building, making decisions on a daily basis, and coming out of the TV booth like that. It's just never been done before. I just think the only thing gives me pause that the win-loss record wasn't a big part of it was just how giddy Jim Irsay was at that introductory press conference. I mean, he really believed that Saturday had a chance to turn that season around, and he was selling that, full go. Now, were there other elements involved in that too? Was it, hey, the best possible outcome is that this is a Rich Bisaccia situation and you lead the Colts to the playoffs, and that's the number one goal. But were there other criteria in there? I think that's certainly possible.
It's at GM Bremer, Bremer on Twitter. George Bremer covers the Colts for the Anderson Herald Bulletin, is with us here on the Payless Liquors hotline. George, shifting gears to Frank Reich in Carolina. Let's say Carolina radio, calls you up today and wants to get your insight on Frank Reich. The biggest selling point you would make to encourage Panthers fans, and then maybe the biggest question you would have about Frank Reich getting another chance.
Yeah, I think the biggest selling point for him is just sort of the way that he was able to steer the ship through, stormy waters. Some of the things that he dealt with here, the Andrew Luck retirement, obviously, an unprecedented situation. People tend to forget. Wasn't just the quarterback carousel. There was a lot of upheaval throughout the entire time he was here. It felt like almost every year that he was here, there was some sort of crisis or off-the-field situation going on that they had to look into. I think Edwin Jackson, he walked into the building right after, Edwin Jackson had died on Super Bowl Sunday, I believe. Just things that head coaches in general don't have to deal with. In the 5 years that he was here, so many things where he had to be almost like a counselor on top of being a head coach. And I think he always was, he was always the same guy through it all. But he always, every time he came to the podium after one of these things had happened, and there was a sense in the franchise that things were heading in the wrong direction, or, the bottom was falling out, except for really this season, almost every time he came to the podium, he had this calm, reassuring manner about him. He used to be a pastor. I think that came into play during that. He would get done talking, and you would have a sense of it's going to be all right. There's a plan. They're going to find a way to move forward. I think that's something that, the NFL, it's all about adversity. And I think Frank has done a really good job and has proven through his career he's as good as anyone at handling those moments when they come up. I think if there's a knock, and you've heard it, I think a lot since he left, since he was fired, sometimes I think he's a little too loyal to some of the players. He can be a player's coach to a fault, in the sense that if you listen to a lot of players in that locker room, even some of the assistant coaches, off the record, that maybe he wasn't always as willing to call out, the top of the line guys, the best of the best, as you need to be probably to win in this league. So we'll see. In your second stop, is that one of the things that you learn from your first go round and it improves you moving forward, or is that something that's just a part of his personality and he's always going to, struggle with that area?
All right, George, I'm trying to build a Frank Reich coaching staff. Out of some of the names in Indy, I want you to rank these three 1 to 3, 1 being most likely to go with Frank Reich to Carolina. In no certain order, but obviously I want you to rank them. Gus Bradley, Bubba Ventrone, Reggie Wayne.
I think of those three, I think Bubba is right at the top. I think those two are really close. I think that's something that, Frank really brought Bubba in here to begin with. and they really just seemed to be tight throughout that entire run. I know there was a lot of talk that, Bubba should have been the interim coach. A lot of people look at him as a future head coach, and I think he'll be really interesting going. Reggie, obviously, only came here because of Frank Reich, and I think he has made that very clear, through his time here. It took, 4 years to finally convince him, but I think that he would be a guy who would be very excited about rejoining Frank Reich if he wants to continue coaching. I think that's the big question with Reggie. Is he ready, to just get on that boat again in Miami and, put his feet up and maybe put on a gold jacket and be done with the coaching element? We'll see. I think Gus, it's hard to say. They had no connection before this year, but it did seem like, they really clicked. And I think that it's going to be an interesting offseason around the league in terms of, I think there's 10 offensive coordinator positions that were open. Defensive side doesn't seem to be quite as competitive, but there were 5 head coaching spots. So, there's going to be a battle there as well. And I think that connection is something that could definitely hook up again, but I would rank them in that order.
Is it possible, though, that Reggie Wayne could be talked into staying if Jeff Saturday's hired because that's a former teammate?
And he is under contract, by the way.
Yeah, it's absolutely possible. I think Reggie, when last time we talked to him, he mentioned he's got 1 year left on his deal. He looked at this as a 2-year deal. And if they want him back, he'd be glad to be back. It's just, there's just so much in flux there.
George, let me ask you this. One thing that I don't think that we've necessarily gotten into, and I don't know this answer, so I'm going to ask either of the two of you guys. Was Reggie Wayne good? Was he a good wide receiver coach? Do we have any way of knowing that?
It's hard to know for sure, especially the way this season went. And I'll defer to Kevin on this one as well because he was there and knew the expectations and watched all the same training camp practices that I did. But I felt like if you looked at how young this receiving group was and how inexperienced they were, I thought Alec Pierce made some strides. Paris Campbell made some strides. Probably Michael Pittman didn't have quite the numbers that you would have wanted from him this year, but there was a lot that went into that. I think all in all, I thought Reggie did a good job.
Yeah, I would agree. I think talent-wise, it's really bottom quartile, if I can go there, and I thought Reggie got them to be a little bit above that. And again, I think for a Hall of Fame type talent, I think Reggie Wayne carries himself in a way that would make him a good coach. I've said this before. He is a Hall of Fame talent, and he's not blessed with Calvin Johnson's size and speed. Like, he had to do a lot, on his own to get to be the level that he was, which I think makes him a good coach. George, before we let you go, let's get a Super Bowl pick from you. The Final Four will be what as a Final Two?
I'm feeling like the Bengals and the Eagles. We'll see, but I'm going Cincy and Philly.
I like it, George Bremer. Great stuff, man. Have a great weekend.
Thanks a lot, guys.
The great George Bremer right there. Just a good dude, and always enjoy chatting with George. So thankful for his time on this Friday morning.
Philly and San Francisco is intriguing. That game can go either way. I mean, obviously both of them can, but Cincinnati has had kind of Kansas City's number. Can they do it again in Arrowhead?
Yeah, 3 in a row, right?
Yeah.
And again, different games. Jamar Chase went off in the first one. Great defense last year in the NFC title or the AFC title game. And then really just kind of a back-and-forth game this year. Obviously, the Mahomes' health is a huge question. But, man, I love Cincinnati's depth at the skill group. And if you can just commit enough to limiting Kelsey, you're really going to make one of those kind of other Kansas City wideouts have to step up.
I mean, you're not kidding about the skill group for Cincinnati in particular. I mean, T. Higgins would be a number one wide receiver a lot of places. Doesn't have great separation speed, but, man, he catches everything.
Tyler Boyd's a really good player. Yeah. Samaje Perine stepped up when they didn't have Mixon earlier this year. Again, Mixon out for a couple games, won both. Jamar Chase, I think, was out for 4 games. They went 3-1 in those 4.
Then again, on the other side of things with Kansas City, I mean, it goes without saying the talent that they have, but the number of times, I wish I had $1 every time I watched the Chiefs play for the times that I thought a play or a drive was over and then Travis Kelce slips in the middle and gets a 12-yard gain.
And Mahomes just keeps it a little bit alive, a little bit longer.
Right. That's exactly right.
You know what? I mean, Jacksonville was right there. If Agnew doesn't fumble late in that game, it's quite impressive, honestly, I think, what Kansas City has done without Tyreek Hill, because I don't think they found just the consistency from that receiver group on this level. But we'll find out, of course, on Sunday. We'll give our picks to round out the show. It's Freebie Friday for the pop quiz, 317-239-1070. Yesterday was quite the performance from Jeffrey on the pop quiz. We had several people reach out throughout the day.
I couldn't care less about the team struggling.
That's what he was. That. Now, I can't remember. Did Jeffrey say that he knew people related to me, or he was related to me?
He knew the queries.
But somebody said that he was related to me.
He knew the queries, and I was skeptical at the start. But then after seeing his academic performance,
they left no
through
doubt.
the pop quiz, I go,
No
oh my
doubt.
God.
But was
Jake and Lawrence.
Hold on. Did he say he was related to the queries, or he knew people that were related to the queries?
He said, I know some queries.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Some people were saying that he said he was related to me.
Well,
after that performance, I wouldn't be surprised to see him at the next family reunion.
1,000%.
You guys act like that it's taken me. I don't know whether to be offended or not that you act like it's taken me 32 years to finish college.
Yeah! It's time for a morning checkdown.
The Morning Checkdown, brought to you by Ball State Basketball. Get your tickets at ballstatesports.com on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Jake, it's not often you get to the midway point of a Big Ten schedule and you have a team undefeated on the road. That is what Purdue has done this year. 9-1 overall in the Big Ten, 6-0 on the road. They beat Michigan 75-70 last night. And when you're this good and your resume is this impressive, you're just kind of looking for other ways to win games. I thought last night was one of those. Zach Edey, 19-9. Fine night, but not what we're used to from Edey. The other guys stepped up for Purdue, in particular their bench. Great performances. And to do that away from home, that's an important step for trying to make a tournament run.
Fletcher Loyer with 17, Braden Smith with 10. Boilers now 20-1, 9-1 in the Big Ten. Women's side of things. The Purdue women winning at number 22, Illinois, but the big story last night in women's college basketball, congratulations to Indiana. Terry Morin's group winning at home over number 2, Ohio State. So the Hoosiers now 6th ranked in the country. They are 19-1, 78-65 over the Buckeyes last night.
Looking ahead to this weekend, by the way, Indiana hosting Ohio State. You want to talk about a disappointing team this year in the Big Ten?
You're talking about men's side, right?
Yes, men's side, sorry. The Buckeyes.
Yeah.
A lot of close losses, but I think they've lost like 6 of 7. Purdue has got Michigan State on Sunday in that one. Tonight, over at Gamebridge Fieldhouse, it'll be Giannis and company. I believe it's Notre Dame Pacers hat night, by the way, for Pat Connaughton.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Do you need me to pick you up one?
Well, I was hoping for about 7 or 8. if you don't mind.
Sent over, sure.
It'll be Giannis, Chris Middleton, Drew Holiday, and company. Unlike 2 weeks ago when these teams played and the Bucks won that by 13, Giannis and Middleton should be on the floor for tonight. For the Pacers, looks like Tyrese Halliburton's absence will continue. Miles Turner, though, questionable, which good news on that end because obviously the trade deadline and just individually he matters a whole lot. But right ankle, it's not the same ankle that he injured in on opening night in warm-ups. The Bucks have won 9 straight in this matchup, 13 of 14.
9 times. Scotty's walked in. It means it's pop quiz time, right?
7.5-point underdog, the Pacers, for tonight. Yes, indeed. Scotty looks like he's going to Game 4 of the 2000 finals right now. Do you have your black socks on? Look at that. Is your head shaved?
Yeah, Scotty got a haircut.
He looks like he's ready for Market Square Arena.
Now, Scotty, since you've moved, do you still go to the same barbershop in Nora? Yes. Okay. Well.
Scotty, I thought the pop quiz was a rather tame for a Friday. It is. It's not bad. Yeah, I really don't think it's too bad at all. 4 was a little odd, but
after yesterday's fine performance, I was hoping for a challenging quiz.
We can only go up from yesterday, right? We'll do the pop quiz next here, Kevin and Corey.
Guys, solve your ED today with an intimacy guarantee, only at the Indianapolis Men's Clinic. If you don't perform, you don't pay. Call the Indianapolis Men's Clinic at 999-9000. 999-9000.
In St. Pete, Clearwater, Florida, the fun extends beyond the beach because here the arts are alive, the food is al fresco, and the nightlife is electric. So let's forget the cold and find our place in the sun. Let's explore captivating collections at the Salvador Dali Museum and bask in bay views from the St. Pete Pier. Let's fill up on fresh cod cuisine and catch up over cold craft beer on rooftop patios. Day or night, let's shine. Plan your escape at visitstpeteclearwater.com.
Anyone who has ever needed self-storage knows what a hassle it can be. You have to rent or borrow a truck and then find someone to help you move your stuff. And let's face it, moving furniture and heavy items without damaging them isn't easy. Renting the unit is worse. The hidden fees and admin costs are scarier than the dingy facilities you're leaving your stuff in. Why not use Closet Box instead? Closet Box is self-storage without leaving home. They'll pick up your belongings, store them securely, and bring any item back when you need it. The best part? Unlike traditional self-storage, you only pay for what you store. No paying for unused storage space. Closet Box's background check storage movers are licensed, bonded, and insured and will take care of all of the heavy lifting. Closet Box's local storage centers are temperature controlled and monitored 24/7. Closet Box has an A+ rating from the BBB. Call 877-233-5696 now for the season's best rates. Get $50 off first month storage using code RADIO50. That's 877-233-5696. 877-233-5696.
What's it like having next-gen supersonic Wi-Fi from Xfinity? Well, it's ready for major gig speeds, so it's fast, like riding a cheetah fast. And with 3 times the bandwidth, the gaming never has to end. Plus, Xfinity supersonic Wi-Fi has the power you need to connect hundreds of devices at the same time. Unbeatable internet from Xfinity. Made to do anything so you can do anything.
Learn more about our next generation Wi-Fi technology from Xfinity to do more of what you love online. Or now through February 21st, new customers can get started with 75 megabits per second internet for only $20 a month for 12 months. Plus, there's no annual contract required, so it's risk-free. Go to Xfinity.com, call 1-800-XFINITY, or visit a store today. Requires paperless billing and auto pay with stored bank account. Restrictions apply. Equipment, taxes, and fees extra. After promo, regular internet rates apply. Actual speeds vary.
Get the truck you've always wanted and get $6,000 off at Tom Wood Ford. Yes, America's best-selling truck, the powerful F-150, is $6,000 off now at Tom Wood Ford. Need an SUV? Take $4,000 off of Ford Escapes with unmatched design and ultimate tech capabilities. Buy with confidence, as most of our vehicles include lifetime powertrain coverage at no cost to you. It's all good at Tom Wood Ford on the corner of 96 and Keystone.
It's all good at Tom Wood. Bum bum.
Tax, title, and doc fees extra. See dealer for details.
The Ride with JMV.
Alec Pierce, wide receiver with us. You allow yourself to watch what's going on in this coaching search?
Yeah, I haven't really followed it too much. I mean, I'll see like on Twitter, Instagram, don't post a guy that's been, but I feel like it's been a ton of guys, and I think I've lost track of all the canons, and I've probably only seen like half of them come through. But yeah, it seems like they're doing their due diligence, and I trust the people that are making the decision to make the right decision.
The Ride with JMV.
Weekdays 3 to 6
on 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan. Have you studied? Can you handle the pressure? Sharpen your pencils. It's time for the Pop Quiz with Kevin and Query. Brought to you by Jiffy Lube, Indiana's favorite oil change since 1985.
Jake, before we get to the Pop Quiz, Maddie was asking me last night about like, oh, what do you think about Frank Reich going to Carolina? And, boy, if he does well there, isn't that going to be bad on the Colts? Are you one that will hyper-analyze that? I'm not one that will be like, oh my gosh, Frank Reich's winning in Carolina. He never should have been fired here. I think at times there was a need there's needs to split. And I think the Colts and Frank Reich needed a split.
No, I think that's fair. I think most people would see it that way. Although I do think a lot of people find it, what's the word I'm looking for? Maybe ironic. That's probably an Alanis Morissette definition of it. But I think there are a lot of people that eye roll the fact that Frank Reich gets fired by the Colts and then gets hired elsewhere before the Colts even replace him.
He's the very first coach off the board.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just think the message and tone got a tad stale.
Colts at Panthers, 2023.
Yeah.
That'll have some juice to it.
I was hoping it'd be reversed. I was hoping Frank would be back here. But yeah, Colts at Panthers next year. All right. Jake, you got a number? 1 through 8?
There are 4 teams left in the NFL playoffs, so we'll go with 4.
Numero 4.
KC Steve.
KC, and this is like KC the letters?
I think this
Like
is
Kansas
Chiefs
City.
fan. This is Chiefs fan Steve,
No,
isn't it?
Kansas City, Steve.
Kansas City Steve. Yeah, you're the Chiefs fan, right?
Yes, sir. How you guys doing?
Steve, how we feeling for Sunday?
A little nervous, my man. A little nervous.
Like good nerves? Like, this...
We are there for 5 times. Yeah, good nerves, but nervous.
Now, Steve, by the way, is a wonderful adopter of, in my opinion, the absolute poster child, coolest non-Kobe and Joey Walsh division rescue dog, Milton. Milton's fired up for the game. He wears his Chiefs collar, correct?
Correct, sir. It's on right now.
What's Milton thinking about the game, you think?
He's a little nervous, too.
Okay, fair enough.
Steve, what's your biggest, storyline X factor for the game?
Patrick Mahomes' ankle.
Yeah, sure. It looked like he was moving around all right this week. Didn't see any boot on it or anything.
We'll see what happens.
Yeah.
I do think Mahomes can kind of offset that with just how crazy of an arm he has. All right, Steve, good luck on this Freebie Friday, and more importantly, probably for you, good luck on Sunday.
Steve, would you like for me, that would be Jake, to lead you off with question number 1, or will you opt for Kevin to get you underway?
Jake, let's fire it up. Let's see what happens.
All right, here we go. Steve, LeBron James was selected for his 19th NBA All-Star game yesterday, tying Kareem Abdul-Jabbar for the most All-Star game selections in NBA history. With whom was LeBron tied for second place? Tim Duncan, Kobe Bryant, Dirk Nowitzki, or Kevin Garnett? I will tell you that same franchise.
I will say that's Kobe Bryant then.
Okay.
All right, number 2, Steve. Frank Reich has a new gig as he was named the head coach of the Panthers yesterday. Name the last Panthers head coach to have a winning record in his first season with the team. A, Ron Rivera, B, John Fox, C, George Seifert, or D, it's never happened.
I think George Seifert.
They go to the NFC title game in year 2 of their existence.
Yeah.
Jacksonville was the same. Was Jacksonville the same way?
Yeah, everything was set up back then for the expansions to immediately be good, right?
Steve, you want another guess at that?
Let's try maybe John Fox.
Okay.
You know what? Maybe the third time will be the charm, Steve. How about one more?
Ron Rivera.
Okay.
Is Jeffrey on line 3?
The fact that he remembered the names right there is pretty good.
Oh, yeah.
All right, Steve, here we go. On this day in 1969, the Pittsburgh Steelers named Chuck Noll as the team's head coach. They have only had 2 since. Name them.
Mike Tomlin and Bill Cowher.
Okay.
There we go. Number 4, Super Bowl 25. Steve, was played on this day in 91 with the Giants edging the Bills 20-19 when the infamous Scott Norwood pushed a 47-yard field goal attempt wide right on the game's final play. Was Frank Reich the holder?
Well, that's a good question.
How do the Giants take their final lead in the game? Was it a Matt Barr field goal, Otis Anderson touchdown run, or Jeff Hostetler TD pass or TD run by Hostetler?
Let me take a second. I believe that was an Otis Anderson touchdown run.
Okay. Last one for you, Steve. By the way, Steve, because Milton is the coolest rescue dog, would you agree, Steve, because you are a doting dad of Milton, that rescue dogs are the way to go? They absolutely know that you rescued them, don't they?
Oh, absolutely. 100.
Yeah.
How long you had Milton?
He's like 11. We've had him for 9 years.
Wow. Great. That's a hell of a
Milton's
run.
the coolest, man.
Good for you, Steve.
All right, Steve, question number 5. Purdue improved to 20-1 with their win over Michigan last night. They are the 3rd team this season to reach 20 wins. Can you name one of the other 2 teams in college basketball this year with 20 wins? I will tell you one of them.
Great vacation spots for both.
That is correct. One of them is a college near Fort Sumter, and the other one is coached by an Indiana native, if I'm not mistaken.
I'll take Houston.
That is a really good guess. Really good guess.
We'll go with one more guess, Steve.
Think of a college for the college of a quaint southern South Carolina city on the water.
On the water.
Right off of Fort Sumter.
Fort Sumter.
South Carolina. It's a city. Colonial city of South Carolina.
Columbia.
Okay, not a bad guess.
All right, let's see how he did. Number 1, with whom was LeBron tied for in second place in All-Star Game appearances, or I should say nominations, I guess, until last night?
Kobe Bryant. Yes! He was correct, by the way. Totally nailed it with Bill Cowher and Mike Tomlin.
Loud and proud.
However, it was not an Otis Anderson touchdown. It was a Matt Barr field goal. And the Carolina Panthers have never had a coach with a winning record in their first season. And College of Charleston and Florida Atlantic are the two schools with 20 wins. But, Steve, it's a Freebie Friday. You're already a winner. Best of luck to your Chiefs over the weekend, and give Milton a pat for us. Stay on the line. Absolutely stay on the line. Milton is the coolest.
Steve, thank you for that.
You're a complete loser.
Nice.
Well, it was fun while it lasted.
I had a feeling you might have one more cooked up there, Mark.
Oh, you want another one? I can give you another one.
I want to kiss you. I couldn't care less about the team struggling. I want to kiss you.
Thanks, Joe. I'll take that as a huge compliment.
You might go with
In my opinion, that sucked.
The Ya Roseman, and kiss my ass or kiss your ass.
Do we have that
you
one?
know.
That one I don't have saved.
Yeah, Robbie.
There were people that were kind of offended by that, apparently.
Oh my gosh, are you serious? Is that where we are right now? I just laughed. All right, one final time here, Kevin and Corey, to close out the week. We'll look at Championship Sunday coming up and give some picks for Eagles and 49ers and Chiefs and Bengals. 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
Bowling, bowling, bowling. Keep them balls a-rolling. Bowling, bowling, bowling. Royal Pin.
The U.S. Open is returning to Royal Pin Woodland. Start the major PBA tournament off with Bowl with the Pros on January 29th, with 2 squad times available, 4 p.m. and 7 p.m. Bowlers of all ages are guaranteed to bowl with 6 of the PBA's top professionals competing in the U.S. Open. Don't stop there. Get your tickets to watch the bowlers compete for the major title and Green Jacket live on Fox. 2 shows available. Visit bowl.com/US Open to sign up to Bowl with the Pros and get your tickets to the live finals. Or call Woodland at 317-844-4099. That's 317-844-4099.
Royal Pin. Bowling, bowling. Royal Pin. Bowling.
When you hear Diamonds Direct, it's not just a catchy name designed to give the illusion of value. Our name is who we really are. Diamonds Direct was started by diamond cutters a quarter of a century ago. At our very core is a commitment to cut out the middleman and deliver extreme value in exquisite diamonds. Today, that's more true than ever, with our direct access to diamonds straight from the mines. Diamonds that we then cut and polish. Exquisite diamonds up to 15 and 20 carats in all shapes and sizes. It's an advantage other jewelers only dream of. By overseeing the entire process, we know for a fact Diamonds Direct is truly direct. So this year, as value becomes more important than ever, rest assured that Diamonds Direct's unique status in the world diamond market guarantees you the best no middleman direct importer price, period. And even with this extreme value promise, at Diamonds Direct you still get an unbeatable selection, transparent education, a luxurious shopping experience, superior customer service, no compromises. It's not having a cool name or clever advertising, it's the truth. Diamonds Direct, your love, our passion.
Need weekend plans? Check out what's happening at your local Lowe's. Weekending at Lowe's gives you and your family the opportunity to make us your weekend destination. Stop by for free workshops, events, and activities for everyone to enjoy. This month, we're celebrating the new year with fun local events like our Dogs of Lowe's Pet Party. Visit Lowe's.com/events for this month's full event lineup. Count on Lowe's for all of your home improvement needs. And now, activities in your community with Weekending at Lowe's.
Hey, JMV here for the absolute best in plumbing. That's Lance and his local team at L.D. Smith Plumbing. The only plumber in Indy to call. They're your hero because Lance and his local team will take care of you. Any plumbing issue and especially plumbing emergencies. Clogged drains, leaky faucets, water heaters. They do it all. The absolute best, and especially with your plumbing emergencies. Lance and his local team with L.D. Smith Plumbing. Check them out online today, ldsmithplumbing.com.
Hello there. My name is Seychelle, and what makes the Chick-fil-A chicken sandwich original to me is the punch of flavors that's unlike any other. You get the crispy tenderness of the chicken and that hint of sourness from the pickles. Ta-da!
Hey, I'm Juan, and what makes the Chick-fil-A chicken sandwich original to me is you're going to get chicken that's crispy, golden, and juicy. This is the gold standard of chicken sandwiches.
Order the original Chick-fil-A chicken sandwich on the Chick-fil-A app today. Real customers paid for their testimonials.
A new career offers new beginnings and unlimited opportunities. Begin your career with Eskenazi Health, ranked as Indiana's top hospital for community benefit by the Lown Institute. At Eskenazi Health, our patients are treated with compassion and skill. That's why Eskenazi Health is looking for professionals who share our mission and have a passion for serving their community. Enjoy excellent benefits, competitive pay, and unwavering leadership support. Learn more about Eskenazi Health careers at eskenazihealth.edu/careers.
It's the final days to save big store-wide at the Truckload event at Lowe's. Right now, get deals on select major appliances and take home what you buy same day. And save an additional 10% on all in-store clearance appliances. Plus, get savings on even more items across the store, like up to 40% off select bathroom products. Hurry and head to your local Lowe's store or visit Lowes.com to shop the Truckload event today. Exclusions apply. While supplies last, selection varies by location. See Lowes.com for details. Valid 1/26 through 2/8.
Soccer Saturday featuring Indy 11. If this is your football, this is your show. Saturday at 9 on The Fan. It's Kevin and Query on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
So allow me to ask this to you, Kevin Bowen. If you were to enjoy for Super Bowl Sunday, let's say if during the Super Bowl you could only serve food that was indigenous to the two Super Bowl participants, which two teams would you be rooting for this weekend?
Well,
I might have to put that on Twitter. That's a darn good question, isn't it?
The pick that I have would bring a nice Philly cheesesteak, which would be great for me. I love that. I do like a good taco dip while I'm watching a game. Can I call Skyline Chili a taco dip?
If you'd like.
I'll go there. Barbecue is a little bit too much for a game. I want to be a little bit more snacky, which I guess Philly cheesesteak's more of a meal. What am I getting in San Francisco?
Clam chowder?
Lobster rolls.
I was going to say Napa wine.
Sourdough bread, a sourdough bold clam chowder, right?
Maybe some wine from Napa.
Ghirardelli chocolates.
Yeah, that's a good question. Where would you be going?
The Philly steak and cheese are pretty good. And by the way, Hoagies and Hops at 47th and Boulevard it's completely decked out. It's like walking into Philadelphia.
Yeah, it's a great spot.
Food. So I would probably take the Philadelphia steak and cheese over the clam chowder, although the clam chowder is pretty good. I would definitely take Kansas City barbecue over Skyline Chili.
Oh, without question.
I'm always nervous what's in the Skyline Chili.
Brown sugar.
Even more reason to pass it by, Kev.
Yeah. All right, what favorite is the exact outcome for the Super Bowl? Two outcomes are the exact favorite. So I need the teams and the result of the Super Bowl. You have two different outcomes that are the favorite right now in Vegas.
Okay.
So teams and then who will win between those two teams in the Super Bowl.
I will say the odds right now.
We got two atop the list and two at the bottom. So let's start at the top, the favorite.
So the favorite, the matchup and the winner?
Correct.
Cincinnati and Philadelphia, with Cincinnati winning.
And the other one?
The other, I'm saying this is the least.
No, there's co-favorites. So there's two atop the list. You said Bengals over Eagles, and the other one is?
Chiefs over Eagles.
Boom. And at the bottom? I guess you could probably just Reverse it a bit.
Yeah. Niners. The bottom would be Niners over Chiefs.
Niners over Bengals, Niners over Chiefs. What you get at in this, because the odds are not very big. This is, and I've mentioned all week long, this is the closely predicted AFC, NFC championship games we've had in years, decades. So after what we had to witness during the divisional round, which I thought was not a lot of entertainment, I hope it lives up to it this weekend.
I think it should be two really good games, don't you?
Yeah, I mean, again, the hottest teams. I mentioned that ESPN stat earlier in the week. Since November, Burrow is 10-0 as a quarterback. Brock Purdy is 7-0. Mahomes is 10-1, and Jalen Hurts is 8-1. And Mahomes' losses to Burrow.
I just think that the Cincinnati streak against Kansas City is where Kansas City Steve should be feeling some relief. Because
that's my one worry about picking
teams
Cincinnati.
That good, yeah. I mean, what are the odds, right?
And I do feel like, and I don't know, we'll find out on Sunday, I do feel like Mahomes looks a little bit better than I thought he would look at this point. Based off that ankle.
I mean, they give him a cortisone shot and he goes out, right? And then he's got 2 weeks to heal.
Still, I mean, if he's 78% instead of 98%, that one play can be the difference.
Yeah, you're right, but
such a closely compacted game.
Mahomes at 78,
but they need him MVP Mahomes.
They do, but at the same time, as we saw against Buffalo, against who did they just beat? Jacksonville, sorry.
Oh, they meant Cincy.
In a spell moment for a drive or two, Henry's not terrible. I mean, he's not going to win a game for you in the whole game. I get it. But if Mahomes needs to go and get retaped or something, it's not like it's a disaster.
But it's more like keeping a play alive on a third down.
I get it.
Can you get that half second that makes him so dangerous?
Oh, Rice-A-Roni. How did we forget Rice-A-Roni, Mark?
San Francisco treat. We're dummies.
Look at that.
Well, I don't know if you know this or not, but they're thinking about moving that down to the Miami market.
I heard that.
Healy's been talking to them the whole time.
Healy?
He was down in Miami talking to the Rice-A-Roni folks, right?
I've had rice. We had some rice and broccoli the other night. It was great.
Yeah, you can never go wrong with rice and broccoli, right?
Nice little side.
Every time I go to that Panda Express, they're out of rice.
Well, that's unacceptable.
It seems weird, doesn't it?
Do you guys see they came out with the All-Pro list for 2022 season? You had 2 players, unanimous All-Pro. Can you guys name the 2?
From this season that just completed. Boy, unanimous.
I'll give each of you a guess.
I mean, this obviously meaning the best at their position regardless of conference, right?
Correct.
Justin Jefferson.
Justin Jefferson is Mark's guess. Jake?
I don't know what kind of year this guy had, and he might have been out for the year, and I'm going to sound like an idiot, but I'm going to go with Justin Tucker.
Justin Jefferson and Travis Kelce.
Kelce was, darn it! But then I thought about George Kittle, and I'm like, I don't know.
Suck on that all week.
Gee, well, that's quite the way to end a Friday here.
Excuse me?
Thanks, Jerry Jones.
I swear I was about to say Travis Kelce.
Mahomes got 49 of 50 votes. Obviously, Quentin Nelson did not get an All-Pro. He had 4 straight of those. 3 on the first team, 1 on the second team.
What do you think happened with Quentin Nelson?
I think some injuries caught up to him.
Do you think they're injuries that are temporary injuries, or do you think they are debilitating injuries?
I think debilitating's a little bit
in other words,
extreme.
But are they injuries that have caused him to hit a ceiling?
I think he can still get back to that level, but I think having the 3 surgeries that he had in about a 9 or 10 month span the prior offseason, I just think that caught up a little bit to him. So I don't know if there's some sort of cleanup that's necessary, but the regression on the offensive line, all 5 of them had it, and he had it as well. And again, you're paying him way too much money for that to be the norm.
I think you're paying him way too much money, even if it was the norm.
Yeah, that's a good point.
You know what I mean?
That's a good point. All right, should we make our picks?
Yep.
Sure.
You begin.
Eagles 49ers, 3 o'clock on Sunday. Eagles favored by 2.5. Over-under, last I saw, was 46. Did you guys realize Brock Purdy and Jalen Hurts played in college against each other?
I have seen that floating around.
6 total touchdowns in the game by Brock Purdy. 5 total touchdowns by Jalen Hurts in the game. Oklahoma won 42-41, so I hope it's a thriller. I'm going Eagles 23-20. I think they can create some rookie moments from Purdy. I think that pass rush that has a lot can handle it. I'm a little worried that Christian McCaffrey and Elijah Mitchell, the 2 running backs for San Francisco, they have yet to practice this week. I mean, it sounds like they're going to play, but if that San Francisco run game is limited in any way, I feel better about my pick, but I will go with the Eagles by 3.
I think San Francisco actually... I'm a fool for underselling Philadelphia because they've been consistently the best team all season long. But I just like the weapons and the defense of San Francisco. I'm going to say the Niners win by 4 over Philly.
Brock Purdy and the 49ers offensive line had some trouble with the Cowboys defense pass rush. Eagles defense far better. Led the league in sacks. I think that's going to give them even more trouble. I've got the Eagles winning 27-20.
All right, to the AFC title, 6:30 from Arrowhead. Chiefs and Bengals. Let's go in reverse order. Mark Dykton will lead us off. Chiefs favored by 1 to 1.5. Is what I've seen.
Kansas City Steve not going to be too pleased with me. I know that the Joe Burrow record. You feel like that's got to fall off at some point, but I also think the Bengals are kind of in like. They're not afraid of the Chiefs. There's this kind of stigma. You go to Kansas City and Arrowhead.
Burrowhead is what they're calling it.
Yeah. So I think Joe Burrow is riding high. He's really good. I got the Bengals taking on the Eagles in the Super Bowl. Give me the Bengals 31 and the Chiefs 28.
I'm going to Lawrence, Kansas, I think a month from right now, to go see Kansas and West Virginia at Allen Fieldhouse. And I don't know if I will be passing through a Super Bowl championship city, but I think I'll be passing through a Super Bowl participant city.
Ooh.
Because I'll be passing Arrowhead on I-70, and I'll be seeing the location where the Chiefs won the AFC title. Kansas City by 7 over Cincinnati.
Mark, looks like you and I align. Bengals 27, Chiefs 23. I just think Joe Burrow's presence, the depth of Cincinnati's skill group.
I'd love to see it. I'd love to see Cincinnati get back.
And their defense has really impressed me. Cincinnati has not lost a road game in November or beyond in each of the last 2 seasons.
Joe Burrow says their window for winning is his entire career, and boy, it sure looks like it.
He's confident. He's cocky. He ain't wrong either. Big thing for the Colts head coaching search today. Will Jim Irsay be open-minded in front of Raheem Morris?
I hope.
Raheem Morris gets a chance. Second interview. Will Jim Irsay be open-minded to probably the candidate outside of the coaches we'll see on Sunday?
The guy I've wanted the whole time, Raheem Morris.
That I think is most likely to be the Colts head coach. Everybody have a great weekend. We'll talk to you on Monday.
It